Chapter 12:27. Looking at Xiao Xinrui, who was blushing and embarrassed, Zhang Qingxiao squeezed out a smile and said, "But, senior brother, that little thing is really fun. When you use your magic power, a 5-colored phoenix appears. Even I am enchanted by it. Not to mention junior sister, I think it's worth exchanging those Wu Tsong pills for that thing. And Wu Tsong pills, we can ask Master to refine more. If we miss this trade, we don't know if we'll get another chance. It's all my fault, senior brother. I shouldn't have been so stubborn and insisted on buying the Phoenix illusion," Xiao Xinrui said with a frown. "Sigh, I didn't blame you. If we hadn't met the disciples of the 10,000 Poisons sect, we wouldn't have needed the Wu Tsong pills. I'm just saying that if we had kept 2 pills, we wouldn't have had to be so restrained." But that scholar saw that junior sister liked it and insisted on increasing the price. Zhang Qingxiao argued. He said it was some ancient divine object, and the idiot from the 100 Herbs sect also followed. "Forget it, don't talk about it. Let's explain it to Master." Gong Mingwei was too lazy to say anything more. "Junior sister, open the array." Hearing the words, "idiot from the 100 Herbs sect," Xiao Xinrui's eyes flashed. "Yes, senior brother." Xiao Xinrui came to her senses. She quickly took out a round bead from her bosom and held it in her hand. The bead immediately emitted a dim brilliance. Xiao Xinrui looked at the bead, turned around and whispered, "There is no one following us. There is no one within 1,000 feet. Gong Mingwei nodded slightly. Immediately, Xiao Xinrui patted her waist and took out a yellow talisman from a small gray bag. She closed her eyes for a moment and the yellow talisman emitted a faint brilliance. Then, Xiao Xinrui patted her hand and stuck the yellow talisman on the white fog. A magical scene appeared. The place where the yellow talisman was stuck, the white fog retreated, revealing a passage about the height of a person in the middle. Seeing this, Xiao Xinrui nodded to Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao and went in first. Behind her, Gong Mingwei supported the limping Zhang Qingxiao and also went in. As soon as the 3 of them went in, the slender yellow talisman behind them flashed and turned into ashes. The white fog around the passage gathered again and returned to its original state. The 3 of them entered the passage of white fog. After walking for a while, their eyes suddenly opened up. It was a quiet place with birds chirping. The 3 of them seemed to be familiar with this place, so they didn't pay any attention to it. Xiao Xinrui nimbly patted the small bag on her waist, and another 3 yellow talismans appeared in her hand. Xiao Xinrui took one for herself and handed the other 2 to Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao. Then, the 3 of them moved their fingers and pointed at the yellow talismans. The yellow talismans emitted a faint light. The 3 of them patted the yellow talismans on their waists and the yellow talismans suddenly disappeared. Then, the 3 of them looked at each other and moved slightly. Unexpectedly, they rose into the air and flew towards the mountain peak in the distance like immortals. Why are you back so early?" Before the 3 of them flew to the top of Yellow Flower Ridge, they heard Xiao Yuehong's laughter. "Is it because my elixirs are very popular? They've been swept clean by other sects." Unfortunately, before his laughter fell, they heard him cry out in surprise. "You? How did you get injured?" Following the voice, a blue brilliance streaked across the sky. It was the boat-shaped celestial artifact that Xiao Yuehong was standing on. At this moment, Xiao Yuehong no longer looked as lazy as before. Instead, he stood firmly on the celestial artifact. As the mountain breeze blew past, his clothes fluttered and his slightly white hair was blown up. Although he looked to be around 60 years old, he still had the demeanor of a young man. "Father!" Xiao Xinrui heard Xiao Yuehong's voice and couldn't bear it anymore. Before she spoke, her eyes turned red. She flew to Xiao Yuehong's side and held his arm with her hand. "Master?" The 2 senior brothers next to her had a different reaction from their junior sister. Their faces were red and their eyes were apologetic and uneasy. "Why didn't you treat your serious injuries earlier?" Xiao Yuehong glared at them and didn't ask why they were injured. Instead, he scolded them. "Can't you just take a few Wu Tsong pills?" "Father, our Wu Tsong pills are gone," Xiao Xinrui whispered. They've all been replaced? Xiao Yuehong was stunned, and then his eyes lit up. Was it because others fought over the Wucang pills? That's why they injured you? Hee, I didn't expect my pills to be so popular. Xiao Yuehong said to himself. I have to work harder and refine more, father. Xiao Xinrui muttered and stopped Xiao Yuehong from sighing with self-satisfaction. She said, quickly take out the Wucang pills. Second senior brother has already persevered all the way. Okay. Xiao Yuehong patted his waist and took out a yellow talisman. He said, Xiao Hua, quickly take out Master's Wucang pills. Then he patted it with his hand and the yellow talisman turned into a ray of light and flew to the west. Oh, father. Xiao Xinrui saw this and hurriedly stopped him. But was it too late? Looking at the yellow talisman flying away, she said, Father, are there no more Wucang pills in the storage bag? Why did you call Xiao Hua with a sound transmission talisman? Xiao Yuehong said in a bad mood, I'm fine. Why would I put those things in the storage bag? Xiao Xinrui's face was a little panicked. She looked at her two senior brothers and saw the strange expression on their faces. Xiao Yuehong didn't notice. He only waved his sleeve and the four of them landed on the hill. He stretched out his hand and said, Second brother, let Master take a look at your injuries. Xiao Yuehong looked at Zhang Qingxiao's injuries and his face turned cold. Just as he was about to ask, he saw a young man about 17 or 18 years old flying over from the west. The young man's face was slightly round, his nose was high, his eyes were long and narrow, and his eyebrows were thin and thick. They slanted into his temples like swords. His eyes were bright and full of spirit, but there was a hint of confusion in them. The young man's flying speed was even faster than Gong Mingwei's group. When he got closer, he looked at Gong Mingwei's group in surprise. He bowed and said, Greetings, Sect Master. Greetings, Senior Martial Brothers and Senior Martial Sister. When Xiao Xinrui saw this person approaching, she quickly winked as if she was greeting or hinting at something. But before the young man could react, Xiao Yuehong frowned and said, Xiao Hua, where are the Wu Yao pills that Master asked you to take? This. Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment, then immediately understood Xiao Xinrui's hint. He frowned slightly, then said without hesitation, reporting to Sect Master, yesterday evening, Senior Sister Xiao came to the pill room with the Sect Master's token in her hand and took away all the Wucang pills in the pill room. Sigh, not only Xiao Xinrui, but Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao also sighed in their hearts. It's over. After hearing Xiao Hua's words, Xiao Yuehong's face sank. He didn't doubt Xiao Hua's words at all. He turned and scolded, Xiao, Master asked you to take 60% of the Wu Yao pills to E-City. You actually dared to take all of them? Hearing Xiao Yuehong call himself Master instead of Father, Xiao Xinrui knew something was wrong. She quickly put on a smile and said, Father, you misunderstood your daughter's meaning, heh? You disobeyed Sect Master's orders and took away the Wu Yao pills from the sect without permission. Do you have any reasonable reason? Xiao Yuehong sneered. Father, you also know that your Wucang pill has always been very popular in E-City. Every time, there's always a shortage of supply. Every time, your daughter and my two senior brothers have to be urged by others. Isn't your daughter thinking that instead of letting others look on with envy and wait for the next E-City, why not let them have their fill this time? Do you know of our Shang Huaming's generosity? This is possible. Xiao Yuehong nodded with a smile, but then looked at Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao's injuries and frowned. The Wu Yao pills were exchanged for spirit stones and other pills. What about your injuries? If Master wants to refine pills, I'm afraid it will take several days. It's okay. Hearing that her father didn't want to pursue the matter, Xiao Xinrui was overjoyed. She glanced at Zhang Qingxiao and said, Second senior brother's physique has always been strong. This kind of small injury will be healed in a few days. Zhang Qingxiao licked a trace of blood from the corner of her mouth and also smiled. She said with an indescribable meaning, Little junior sister is right. Io, senior martial brother Su, little brother remembers. Little brother's room still has the Wucang pill bestowed by the sect master, but Looking at your physique, it seems you don't need it. Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something and patted his forehead with a smile. Zhang Qingxiao heard Xiao Hua's words and almost vomited blood. She stretched out her hand and looked at Xiao Yuehong from the side, but didn't dare to say anything. If you have the Wu Yao pill, why don't you hurry up and take it? Didn't you see that second senior brother, who usually treats you like a treasure, is injured like this? Xiao Xinrui didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She glared at Xiao Hua and scolded, "Second senior brother really dotes on you." "Yes, senior sister, I'll go right away." Xiao Hua smiled, turned around and jumped into the air. His figure flew to the west. "That's right, little Ray. How many spirit stones did we exchange for the Wu Yao pill? Or did we exchange it for some spiritual grass? Take it out and let father see?" Xiao Yuehong was somewhat impatient to know how much people liked the Wu Yao pill he refined. Unexpectedly, Xiao Xinrui was still looking at the direction Xiao Hua flew in. Looking at the sky that had already disappeared, she nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "Father, did you see that? This Xiao Hua's flying technique is becoming more and more skillful. Using the same flying talisman, he, a first-layer qi refining cultivator, can actually fly faster than us 10th-layer qi refining cultivators." Xiao Yuehong's train of thought was also led astray by his daughter. Looking into the distance, he stroked a few strands of his beard and nodded, "That's right. Xiao Hua indeed has some strange innate talent, especially when using flying talismans. Alas, it's a pity. Even if he has some innate talent, what's the use? If his qi refining realm can't be increased, he can't do anything at all. He can only use flying talismans, but he can't cultivate true flying techniques. Tell me, Xiao Hua didn't eat any less medicinal pills than you did back then. How could you have already reached the 4th layer of aura refining in 3 years? His aptitude is clearly rare, so how could he remain at the 1st layer of aura refining?" Chapter 12:28. But, Master, Xiao Hua's magic power is also increasing. It didn't stop because his realm stagnated. Gong Mingwei interrupted. "What's the use of that?" Xiao Yuehong finally scolded in front of the 3 disciples. Cultivation isn't just about magic power. Realm and comprehension are the most important. As long as your realm increases, your magic power will naturally increase. If your realm doesn't increase, your magic power will have an end sooner or later. No matter how high Xiao Hua's magic power is, it's impossible for him to be a match for you 10th layer qi refining cultivators. Master, you can try to let Xiao Hua take some medicinal pills. Or give him some Peiyuan pill to see if his magic power can stop increasing, or if he can reach the 2nd layer of qi refining. Zhang Qingxiao thought for a long time and finally interrupted. "You're missing a string in your brain," Xiao Yuehong said unhappily. "If Master had enough qi refining medicinal pills or Peiyuan pill, it would be enough to raise your cultivation by another layer. You would also have a chance to cultivate to the peak of the late stage of qi refining. Then, you could help me cultivate a foundation establishment cultivator and let my Shang Huaming's legacy continue. Why would Master spend it on Xiao Hua for no reason? Wouldn't that be a waste of spirit stones for no reason?" "Oh, right. How many spirit stones did you exchange for this time?" "This." Hearing his words provoke Xiao Yuehong's thoughts about spirit stones again, Zhang Qingxiao's face had already turned pale. If it weren't for Gong Mingwei supporting him, he would have fainted immediately. Gong Mingwei and Xiao Xinrui also looked at each other in dismay. At this time, Xiao Hua had already flown to the western mountain peak and landed. In front of him was a small courtyard. Behind the courtyard was Shang Huaming's herb garden. There were more than 10 mu of various spiritual herbs planted inside. Xiao Hua was in charge of Shang Huaming's herb garden and usually lived in this courtyard. However, he didn't step into the courtyard. Instead, he walked to the door of the courtyard and looked back. He reached out his left hand and touched the side of his ear. A jade bottle appeared out of thin air in his left hand, and beside the bottle, there was a small section of grass. Where did the weeds come from? Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment before tossing the weeds to the ground with a shake of his hand. He didn't even examine it carefully as he removed the cork of the bottle and brought it under his nose to sniff it. He nodded and said, "Heh, fortunately, I still have a bottle of parasol pills hidden here. Otherwise, second senior brother, you would have to suffer for a few more days." As he spoke, he flew up again and headed straight for Xiao Yuehong, who was in jailing. The way Xiao Hua took out the jade bottle was very similar to the way Xiao Xianrui took out the yellow talisman from her storage bag. It's just that he didn't have any storage bag on him. Who knows where he took out the jade bottle from? When Xiao Huafei arrived beside Xiao Yuehong and the other master and disciples, the atmosphere was no longer as relaxed as it was when he left. Xiao Yuehong's face was ashen as he coldly looked at Xiao Xianrui and asked, "Little Rui, do you know, it's easy to tell a lie, but you have to tell 100 lies to cover up this lie. Do you think that all these lies won't be discovered one day?" "Father." Hearing this, Xiao Xianrui's face also changed greatly. With a plop sound, she knelt down on the ground and reached out to take out a group of colorful brilliants from her bosom. A lifelike peacock spread its wings in the colorful brilliance and was about to fly. Between the wings of the peacock, all kinds of colors were spread out, which was really beautiful and attractive to the eyes. It was the peacock illusion that Xiao Xianrui had exchanged all her parasol pills for in this transaction. The beauty of the peacock illusion made Xiao Yuehong's eyes absent-minded for a moment. After a moment, he woke up and pointed with his finger, coldly saying, "I, Shang Huaming, exchanged all my parasol pills for this little thing?" "Father, I know I was wrong." Xiao Xianrui lowered her head and cried, "Humph! This thing, no matter how beautiful it is, it's just an ornament. Those parasol pills, how many spirit stones, magic tools, and talismans could they be exchanged for? Even some talismans could be exchanged. You actually exchanged them for this." The more Xiao Yuehong spoke, the angrier he became. He stretched out his hand and the peacock illusion flew into his palm. Xiao Yuehong glanced at his daughter's panicked expression and clenched his hand, about to crush it. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao were shocked. Ignoring their injuries, they also knelt in front of Xiao Yuehong and shouted, "Master, have mercy." But junior sister, she has never had anything that she likes since she was a child. After going to East City so many times, it's rare for her to see something that she likes. Can you be merciful and please don't destroy it? Zhang Qingxiao stuttered. "Yes, master." Junior sister has never had anything fun since she was young. It's the first time she's met something she likes so much. It's also the first time she's asked a disciple to help her buy it. You have never bought anything for her. Why don't you take it as a gift from master to junior sister for her 26th birthday? Gong Mingwei's eyes lit up and he hurriedly persuaded. Hearing his two disciples' words, Xiao Yuehong's heart ached. Shang Huaming was a small sect and had always been poor. Xiao Xianrui had never had a mother's love since she was young. As a man, he was careless and had never exchanged anything fun for his daughter. This was the first time his daughter had asked for it. How could he destroy his daughter's hope? Looking at Xiao Xianrui's gaze that made his heart ache, how could Xiao Yuehong do it? "Sect master, the Wu Cheng pills are here." Xiao Hua flew close and handed over the jade bottle. Looking at that beautiful peacock illusion, he smacked his lips and said, "This is over a dozen bottles of parasol pills." In a moment, lost both the pills and the goods. "You're here to anger me too?" Xiao Yuehong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He flew up and kicked Xiao Hua's butt, but his strength was too light. If it weren't for the fact that there were no flies in Yellow Flower Ridge, even if there were flies lying on Xiao Hua's butt, he wouldn't have kicked a fly's hair. Seeing Xiao Yuehong like this, the three people kneeling on the ground all breathed a sigh of relief. "Forget it, get up." Xiao Yuehong waved his hand and sighed. "It's also father's fault for being careless. I never thought that a girl like you would have such a hobby. Just take this thing as your birthday gift." "Thank you, father." Xiao Xianrui replied with a smile. Handing over the peacock fantasy in his hand, Xiao Yuehong smiled and said, "Little Rui, in the future, if there's anything, you can tell father. Don't say any meaningless lies." "Oh, right, after half a year, Don't ask father what he wants. Daughter doesn't dare. Xiao Xianrui said shyly. Daughter wanted to find time to tell father, but unexpectedly, well, this time, you all used the Wu Yao pill to exchange for the peacock fantasy. Master won't punish you. Without waiting for Xiao Yuehong to finish, Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao both bowed and said, "Thank you, Master, for your magnanimity." "Don't, Master hasn't finished yet." Xiao Yuehong waved his hand. "Master won't punish you for exchanging things, but you all lied in front of Master. That's against the sect rules, so Master punishes you to go to the solitary Staff Peak's Tranquil Heart Cave to reflect on your mistakes for 100 days. Sect Master?" Xiao Hua wanted to plead, but looking at Xiao Yuehong's face, he could only swallow the rest of his words. "Okay, second brother, you can take the Wu Yao pill." Xiao Yuehong threw the jade bottle that Xiao Hua handed over to Zhang Qingxiao and said to Gong Mingwei, "Eldest brother, tell me, how did your injuries come about? Could it be that you were too competitive with others?" "Disciple doesn't dare." Gong Mingwei glanced at Xiao Xianrui, then turned his head and said respectfully to Xiao Yuehong, "Disciple will remember Master's teachings. Cultivation is to pursue the heavenly Tao and break through the self. Magic competition is only a small Tao, not worthy of the Grand Hall." "Well said, but what about your injuries?" Xiao Yuehong sneered. "Father, don't blame eldest senior brother, and don't blame second senior brother. They're all disciples of the 10,000 Poison sect." Xiao Xianrui argued. "They said that our Shang Huaming is a 1,000-year foundation establishment, a 10,000-year qi refinement. Forever can only be the Dawn Rain continent, a low-level cultivation sect. That's it." Xiao Yuehong's reaction was not as calm as Xiao Xianrui thought. "That's it? Father, the 10,000 Poison sect is only a small sect. How can they compare to my Shang Huaming?" That's what eldest senior brother and second senior brother were anxious and tried to reason with them and unconsciously fought. "Do you think the 10,000 Poison sect is wrong?" Xiao Yuehong said neither quickly nor slowly. "Since the 10,000 Poison sect is a small sect, then how did you lose? How did you get seriously injured? What about the disciples of the 10,000 Poison sect?" "Father, the 10,000 Poison sect has several 7th-level qi refinement disciples and one 11th-level qi refinement disciple. How can the three of us be a match for them?" Xiao Xianrui argued. "A small sect like the 10,000 Poison sect has several 9th-level qi refinement disciples and one 11th-level qi refinement disciple. They're much more powerful than my famous Shang Huaming and the other 10th-level qi refinement disciples. Tell me, in the end, who's the small sect and who's the famous one?" Xiao Yuehong asked calmly. "But my Shang Huaming's secret cultivation method can be cultivated to the golden core stage. Among my seniors, there were many golden core cultivators. And the cultivation method of the 10,000 Poison sect can only be cultivated to the late stage of foundation establishment. Their seniors didn't even have a single golden core cultivator. How can their 10,000 Poisons sect compare to my Shang Huaming?" Gong Mingwei argued with all his might. "Alas, my disciples, you're not wrong. My Dawn Rain continent is extremely lacking in cultivation methods. The majority of sects only have one cultivation method, and these cultivation methods are divided into various grades and grades. The low-grade ones can only be cultivated to the foundation establishment and golden core stages. The mid-grade ones can be cultivated to the nascent soul and deity transformation stages. Only the high-grade ones can be cultivated to the tribulation transcendent stage and the great ascension stage. There are even more sects that have cultivation methods that can only be cultivated to the high levels of qi refinement. My Shang Huaming, on the other hand, received the legacy of my ancestor and passed down a low-grade cultivation method that can allow my disciples to cultivate to the golden core stage. In this aspect, the 10,000 Poisons sect really can't compare to my Shang Huaming." Chapter 1229. "But I do have the cultivation method, but the disciples have become a problem. I Shang Huaming am a small sect. Without absolute strength, I can't compete with the big sections. I can't compete with the big sects for disciples. Compared to other small sects, Shang Huaming not only has stricter standards for selecting disciples, but we also lack spiritual herbs and medicinal pills. Compared to the 10,000 Poison sect, which is rich and has many disciples, Shang Huaming really can't compare. Then he glanced at Gong Mingwei and the other two, then at Xiao Hua, and said kindly, although Yellow Flower Ridge is a spiritual vein, it's still far from being comparable to a real heavenly abode. I've been working hard to plant spiritual herbs and refine medicinal pills these years, but before I found Xiao Hua, I didn't have any achievements. After Xiao Hua came, I focused on taking care of the herb garden. Only then did I have the time to study medicinal pills. I have some gains, but to take out some Peiyuan pill to help you improve your magic power and realm like the 10,000 Poison sect, I still can't do it. Disciples are unworthy. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao were ashamed. Xiao Yuehong also let them take care of the herb garden, but they only wanted to practice the cultivation method and didn't care about other things. Of course, they made a mess, and in the end, Xiao Yuehong had to do it himself. There's nothing wrong with concentrating on cultivating the cultivation method. Everyone has their own fate. Even if we let Xiao Hua cultivate the cultivation method, he won't be able to cultivate it. It's better to let him take care of the medicine garden. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand. Yes, Sect Master is right. Xiao Hua knew Xiao Yuehong's painstaking efforts. He also practiced Shang Huaming's cultivation method and knew the problems he encountered in practicing it. He nodded in agreement. However, Xiao Hua asked again, by the way, Sect Master, what kind of spiritual herbs are needed to refine the Peiyuan pill? Do we have them in our garden? Oh, the main ingredient of the Peiyuan pill is the absorption fruit. Although it's rare, I have it in my herb garden. That's strange. That absorption fruit, disciple has seen it before. Although it's not much, it's not little. Why doesn't Sect Master refine the Peiyuan pill? Xiao Hua asked. Hee, you only know one thing but not the other, Xiao Hua. Xiao Yuehong stroked his beard and said with a smile, alchemy is an extremely important subject. It's as important as cultivating a mental cultivation method. If you don't have profound attainments, you definitely won't be able to successfully refine medicinal pills. Have some attainments in the field of alchemy. That's why the Wuxia pill I concoct is so effective that it's only available in E-City. On the other hand, to concoct the Peiyuan pill, not only does one require profound alchemy skills, one also needs an even older assimilation fruit. Ah? Xiao Hua came to a realization and asked again, then, I'm afraid that the absorption fruits in our garden have been around for 10 years. Isn't that enough? How can 10 years be enough? I'm afraid that even 20 or 30 years won't be enough. Xiao Yuehong smiled bitterly. That long? Xiao Hua exclaimed, then who can grow it? Hee, pitiful child. The spirit grasses in our medicine garden are only used to refine ordinary medicinal pills. The spirit grasses used to refine the Peiyuan pill are all specially planted by large sects using special methods or special places. Or, they're harvested from deep mountains and marshes where no one has ever stepped foot on them. The absorption fruits used to refine the Peiyuan pill aren't too demanding. However, the exquisite grass used to refine the foundation establishment pill requires a medicinal age of over 300 years. Xiao Hua was flabbergasted. 300 years. It seems that the age of the 5 people in front of him added together is longer than that. This exquisite grass really isn't something that ordinary people can grow. Therefore, there's an old saying in the cultivation world of the Dawn Rain continent. Qi refining is easy, foundation establishment is hard. That's how it is. Xiao Yuehong sighed and said, from the late stage of qi refining to the early stage of foundation establishment, the amount of true qi required isn't something that can be provided by ordinary refining of spiritual energy. One can only rely on external objects to greatly increase the amount of true qi in the meridians in the body. Only then can one push one's cultivation to break through the shackles of the realm. There are many kinds of external objects like this. Taking the foundation establishment pill is the most common and most effective kind. Master, the exquisite grass used to refine the foundation establishment pill requires a medicinal age of 300 years. It's really hard to find. Is it possible that there are other things? After taking the parasol pill, Zhang Qingxiao was full of energy. Hearing her master talk about foundation establishment, her heart itched even more and she couldn't help but ask. Sigh, the exquisite grass is a spiritual grass of heaven and earth. It absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and grows for hundreds of years. It contains the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within the grass and then adds other spiritual grasses to refine the foundation establishment pill. The medicinal properties of the foundation establishment pill are mild and the spiritual energy entering the body is also slow. It's precisely walking the path of righteousness. For us cultivators, it's the most orthodox method and there won't be any special side effects. As for other external objects, for example, directly taking rare and aged spiritual grasses, due to the lack of other supplementary herbs, there might be some toxicity. It might also harm the meridians. Just like ordinary people, if they eat cooked food, of course it's delicious. If they eat it raw, it might not taste good and they might even have diarrhea. Haha, Xiao Yuehong's explanation was very profound and simple, making Zhang Qingxiao almost laugh out loud. Secmaster, you said to eat vegetables, then, is there anyone who eats meat? Xiao Hua on the side also asked with a smile. This, Xiao Yuehong muttered, looked at Xiao Hua and said, according to the sect's ancient records, a long time ago there's really people who eat meat? How do they eat it? The four people's eyes lit up and looked at Xiao Yuehong in surprise. It's said that in this world, people aren't the only ones who can cultivate. There are many creatures, such as wild beasts, trees, and so on. They all have their own cultivation methods. Since spiritual grasses can be refined into pills, those wild beasts can naturally also, Xiao Hua listened and his mouth opened wide, as if he thought of something. What's wrong? Xiao Yuehong said curiously, this is also recorded in the sect's ancient records. Master has never seen it with his own eyes. Oh, nothing. Although there was some surprise and excitement in Xiao Hua's eyes, he still didn't say anything. It said that when some people build their foundation, they use the inner cores of demonic beasts to cultivate. They can also obtain a large amount of spiritual qi from the inner cores, which can be used to advance their cultivation. However, this spiritual qi is refined by demonic beasts, which is different from what we humans refine. It's very easy for problems to arise. Therefore, over time, it gradually disappeared. Speaking up to here, Xiao Yuehong looked around Yellow Flower Ridge in disappointment and said, unfortunately, in my Yellow Flower Ridge, there are only trees and trees. I don't see any rare things. Even if Master wants to get a demonic beast's inner core to advance your cultivation, it's impossible. Xiao Hua listened and a strange expression appeared on his face. Okay, Master won't say any more. You're only at the 10th layer of qi refining, there's still a long way to go to the 12th layer of qi refining. Once you reach the peak of qi refining, Master will tell you everything in detail. If I tell you now, it'll become a burden. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand and said, you wait, pack up and immediately go to the Peaceful Heart Cave on Lone Staff Peak. Xiao Hua, you also go, supervise them. Yes, Sect Master. Xiao Hua bowed and saluted. Xiao Yuehong turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. He frowned and asked, also, just now you said that there were several 9th layer qi refining cultivators and one 11th layer qi refining cultivator in the 10,000 Poison sect. You only 3 10th layer qi refining cultivators. How did you escape so easily? When Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao heard this, their faces changed color. Xiao Xianrui lowered her head slightly, a trace of red appearing on her face. Master, we're easy? Can't you see how injured your disciple is? Zhang Qingxiao braced herself and said, less nonsense, hurry up and say it. Otherwise, you'll have to reflect on your mistakes for 200 days. Xiao Yuehong sneered. Master, it's like this. Gong Mingwei saw that Master was really angry again, so he glanced at Xiao Xianrui and said, when we were buying the Peacock Fantasy for Junior Sister, we met the young master of the 100 Herbs sect, Jiang Fan. It was because he was against us that the price of the peacock fantasy was raised so high. Tell me the important things. Xiao Yuehong glared at him and scolded. Yes, master. Actually, when we were fighting against 100 Poisons sect, we were at a disadvantage. But, for some reason, Jiang Fan actually led his disciples to help us. That's why we didn't suffer too much. The 100 Herbs sect? Jiang Jiantong? I've only met him a few times, and we don't have a deep friendship. Xiao Yuehong was puzzled, but he didn't notice Xiao Xianrui's blush, nor did he notice the unnatural expressions on Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao's faces. Forget it, I Shang Huaming, owe the 100 Herbs sect a favor. When the time is right, I'll pay them back. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao sighed softly, but Xiao Xianrui looked disappointed. The Lone Staff Peak was a relatively remote mountain in the north of Yellow Flower Ridge. There weren't any nearby peaks, and the climate here was different from the other peaks. Not only was the wind very strong, but the temperature was also much lower. If Gong Mingwei and the other two weren't Qi practitioners of the 10th level, they would have easily reached the top of the Lone Staff Peak. Even so, when the three of them entered the tranquil cave of the Lone Staff Peak, they were surprised by the coldness and the cold wind that blew in from time to time. Xiao Xianrui circulated her vital energy through her meridians to force out the bone-chilling cold. She sighed and said, "Is this a place for humans to stay? It's so hard. Junior sister, I have to stay here for 100 days. Zhang Qingxiao screamed. Senior brothers, the sect leader sent you here? I'm afraid there's a deeper meaning behind it. Xiao Hua followed the three of them into the tranquil cave. He had never heard of this place before, and had never been here before. He couldn't help but shrink back and smile. Xiao Hua, it's easy for you to say that. It's not like you're the one who's reflecting on your mistakes in the tranquil cave. Why don't we switch places? Let's see if I can make such sarcastic remarks, Zhang Qingxiao said unhappily. Little junior brother, Xiao Xianrui said with a smile. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it on Qidian.com. Chapter 1230. Io, senior sister, please don't call me that. Sect master has never accepted me into the sect. It's not appropriate for you to call me that. Xiao Hua felt that something was wrong and immediately denied it. Father hasn't chased you down the mountain for so long. Naturally, he has the intention of accepting you into the sect. You just need to cultivate slowly. If 10 years isn't enough, 20 years and you still can't reach the 3rd level of Qi refining? So, you are destined to be my junior brother. Xiao Xianrui didn't agree. She understood that if it wasn't for the strange custom of Xiaoyu continent, Xiao Hua would have already been accepted into the sect. Forget it, senior sister. Don't say anything useless. You just say what you want to say. Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. It's nothing. However, it's so cold here. Senior sister and your 2 senior brothers, don't freeze. What pills do you have? Can you lend us a few? Don't, senior sister. Sect master hasn't given any orders. I don't dare to casually agree. Xiao Hua shook his head like a rattle. Stingy, Xiao Xianrui stomped her feet and stole a glance at Zhang Qingxiao. My back hurts. Little junior brother, don't you have the slightest bit of benevolence? Seeing your senior brother who usually dotes on you suffer like this? Zhang Qingxiao immediately cried out in pain. Hee, second senior brother, don't complain. I won't give you anything. Xiao Hua righteously said. If you don't want to give, then don't give. How about, you try the cold yourself? Zhang Qingxiao said angrily. Fine, aren't I right here? Xiao Hua said with a smile. At worst, I won't go back tonight. I'll just stay outside the cave with you. A gentleman keeps his word. Junior brother, let's see if you'll stay here tonight. Zhang Qingxiao felt a bit better after dragging Xiao Hua along. While the three were talking, Gong Mingwei had already looked around the tranquil cave. He walked to the entrance and said, This tranquil cave has many depressions deep into the stone wall. People can sit in them. Junior brother, junior sister, choose one. We'll cultivate here for the next 100 days. Yes, senior brother. The two nodded and then rolled their eyes at Xiao Hua before walking away. Xiao Hua, eldest senior brother, what are your orders? Gong Mingwei took out a small silk pouch from his bosom and handed it over, saying, there are more than 10 exquisite grass seeds in here. Exquisite grass? Xiao Huagang had heard about the building foundation pill before. Of course, he was very sensitive and cried out in surprise. Oh, that's right. Eldest senior brother, how could I have forgotten about the seed of the exquisite grass? When Zhang Qingxiao heard this from afar, she immediately slapped her forehead and shouted, no wonder when Master mentioned the exquisite grass earlier, I felt that it sounded familiar. Junior brother, go quickly. Take this bag of seeds and plead with father. Xiao Xinrui was also pleasantly surprised. Oh, Xiao Hua took the bag with a smile and asked, how should I report this to the sect head? We also inadvertently obtained it. A mysterious destitute cultivator took this bag and exchanged it with quite a few people, but they all refused to exchange it with him. Junior apprentice sister pitied him, so she exchanged it with 3 parasol pills. Gong Mingwei spoke the truth. When Xiao Hua heard this, he frowned, but still said, senior brother, wait a moment. After a while, Xiao Hua returned. How is it? Zhang Qingxiao couldn't wait to ask. The sect head said that this thing is trash. The exquisite grass isn't grown with seeds. It's not even worth a single parasol pill. Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Xinrui cried, we were still cheated. That person said that this was a good thing, but no one recognized it. Looking at the silk pouch that Xiao Hua handed over, Gong Mingwei said expressionlessly, take it. Then he turned around and found a place to sit cross-legged. He used Shang Huaming's secret heart technique and began to cultivate in peace. Seeing their eldest senior brother like this, Zhang Qingxiao and Xiao Xinrui also calmed down. They each found a place to sit and regulated their breathing. Xiao Hua looked at the silk pouch in his hand, and the corner of his mouth revealed a bitter smile. Gong Mingwei and the other two, this was not the first time they had been fooled. Not only was he already used to it, even Xiao Yuehong, upon hearing about the seed of the exquisite grass, did not even open the silk pouch, and directly dismissed Xiao Hua with a single sentence. But, if he didn't use the seed to grow the exquisite grass, then, wouldn't it take 300 years? Who would do that? In any case, Xiao Hua knew that he definitely wouldn't do it. Seeing that Gong Mingwei and the other two were cultivating, Xiao Hua didn't want to disturb them. He tossed the silk pouch in his hand, caught it, and tossed it out again. Then, he turned around and walked out of the tranquil cave. Outside the tranquil cave, the cold wind blew. Xiao Hua shrunk his neck and secretly regretted it. Why is the wind on Lone Staff Peak so strong? It's not as good as Shihua Peak's weather. Why did I casually promise senior sister to accompany them here? I didn't say anything wrong. Looking around, Xiao Hua slowly walked towards the peak. The tranquil cave wasn't far from the peak. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Xiao Hua arrived at the peak of Lone Staff Peak. The wind on the peak was even stronger. However, standing at such a high place gave him a relaxed and happy feeling. The Lone Staff Peak was completely bare. Xiao Hua casually found a huge mountain rock and sat down. Beside the mountain rock, there were a few stalks of wild grass stubbornly standing upright, swaying left and right in the wind. Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and grabbed a stalk of wild grass, holding it in his mouth. While biting the grass with his teeth, he looked around. This was also his first time coming to the Lone Staff Peak, so the surrounding scenery was still very unfamiliar. Lone Staff Peak was the tallest peak in Yellow Flower Ridge. There weren't many trees on the peak. Most of them were strange rocks. At the bottom of the peak was a wide mountain stream. The gurgling water flowed into a huge cold pond at the side. There's also a pond here? Look at this flowing water. Isn't it connected to the pond at Shihua Peak? Xiao Hua saw the pond and was delighted. He threw the stalk of grass in his hand and was about to fly down. However, the grass flew with the wind and landed on his face. Just as Xiao Hua was about to impatiently push it away, his mind suddenly lit up. Just now, when I took out the Wu Yao pill, why was there grass in my hand? Xiaohua recalled the scene when he took out the Wu Yao pill. I don't seem to have put any grass in my head. Thinking this, Xiaohua sat down again and closed his eyes. When he closed his eyes, in his mind, appeared a space of several tens of zhang. This was Xiaohua's biggest secret. A secret that he had never told anyone. Where this space came from and how it was formed, Xiaohua didn't know at all. In any case, after he was saved by Xiao Yuehong, he discovered that there was an empty space in his mind. He could put things in this space and also take things out of it. It wasn't much different from the storage pouch that Xiao Xinrui used. Of course, what if there was a difference? He was the only one who could perceive this space. No one else knew about it. Also, this space had a ground and the ground also had soil. It was different from the soft space of the storage pouch. At this moment, Xiaohua closed his eyes and looked into the space in his mind. Other than some messy little things, there were a few sparse weeds growing on the ground. Beside the weeds, there were a few withered weeds and a few tools used for weeding. Oh, I understand. I'm afraid, when I was weeding in the medicinal field this morning, when I put the tools into the space, I also put in some weeds. Xiaohua nodded slightly. Ever since he knew that he could put things in his mind, he casually threw some tools, jade bottles and other things that he needed to carry with him. In any case, the space of several tens of zhang was enough for him to store everything. Oh, that's not right. The weeds. I accidentally put them in my quilt this morning. How could they have grown so tall? Just as Xiaohua wanted to shift his attention away from the weeds, he saw that the weeds were thriving and had a question. Could it be that they were brought in a few days ago? Immediately, Xiaohua thought again. Since weeds can grow in this space, then, what about spiritual herbs? Xiaohua naturally turned his thoughts to the silk bag in his hand. Xiaohua thought and raised his left hand to his ear. The silk bag in his hand disappeared. Immediately after, the silk bag appeared on the ground in his mind. Anyway, this is the seed of the exquisite grass. I'll plant it first. Sect Master only said that it was useless. I failed and no one will know. That's not right. Spiritual herbs are different from weeds. They need to be specially planted. I can't go in myself. How can I plant it? Xiaohua looked at the silk bag and was worried. He could take things out of the space, but he couldn't plant spiritual herbs in it. That's right. How could I forget? Doesn't Sect Master have a puppet that can plant spiritual herbs? Although he didn't use it for a long time, I can still use it to try. Since I'm going to plant it, why don't I plant some of the spiritual herbs in Cherishing Flower Peak's medicine garden here and see what effect it has? Xiaohua grabbed a flying talisman from the space beside his ear. He slapped it on his body and flew toward Mindless Worship Peak. Mindless Worship Peak was the main peak of Yellow Flower Ridge. It was also where Shang Huaming's sect was located. Puppets that could plant spiritual herbs were extremely rare in the Dawn Rain continent. Xiao Yuehong had spent a lot of effort to exchange for it from someone else by chance. Therefore, after Shang Huaming had Xiao Hua as a servant to plant spiritual herbs, Xiao Yuehong treasured the puppet very much. When he heard that Xiao Hua wanted to use a puppet, he didn't find it strange. He looked Xiao Hua up and down and said, "Is there anything in the medicine garden that you can't handle? Why did you think of a puppet?" Reporting to Sect Master. Long ago on the road, Xiao Hua had already come up with an excuse. Senior brother and senior sister are reflecting in the tranquil cave. When I accompanied them just now, I already told them that I'll accompany them every day. With more people, wouldn't it be more lively? Moreover, I can also take the opportunity to have senior brother give me pointers on my cultivation. Lively with more people? Xiao Yuehong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 12:31. Master told them to calm down so that they could cultivate. How could there be any liveliness or loneliness? However, they are usually busy cultivating and never go to the medicinal garden, so it's not good for them to guide your cultivation. This is a very good opportunity. Apart from cultivating, they can also give you some pointers. Xiao Hua, you should also work hard, okay? Hurry up and cultivate to the 3rd layer of qi refining. You're only half a disciple. When can you truly become my disciple? Aren't I working hard right now? Xiaohua laughed. In these 100 days, let the puppet do more work. You should cultivate more. Xiao Yuehong patted his storage pouch and took out a yellow talisman and a fist-sized spirit stone. Take this yellow talisman to the secret room. You've used the puppet before, so you know how to control it. Take this spirit stone and place it on the puppet's back. It shouldn't be a problem for you to use it for 100 days. Sect Master? The puppet also uses spirit stones? Xiaohua reached out and took it. He asked curiously, Child, if you don't use the spirit stones, how can the puppet move? How can it grow spirit herbs? Xiao Yuehong laughed and scolded. Xiaohua smiled and didn't say anything. After bidding farewell to Xiao Yuehong, he came to the back mountain of Mingli Peak. He arrived in front of a smooth and shiny stone wall and stuck the yellow talisman on it. A faint cyan light flashed, and a cave about the height of a person appeared on the stone wall. Xiaohua walked in without hesitation. At the end of the cave was Shang Huaming's secret room. Inside was Shang Huaming's collection of the past generations. Xiaohua looked around and saw a puppet about the same height as a person in the corner of the secret room. The puppet was lying diagonally on the ground, its back leaning against the stone wall and its head slightly drooping. Xiaohua walked over and turned the puppet over. Sure enough, there was a fist-sized hole on the puppet's back. Xiaohua took out the spirit stone and placed it in the hole. A faint white light emitted from the spirit stone, and the puppet's body, made of an unknown material, flashed slightly. The hole on the puppet's back disappeared, and the puppet stood up from the ground like a person. The puppet's limbs were the same as a person's, but the carving on its head was relatively rough. The facial features on its face weren't too similar, especially its two eyes. Although they showed a bit of spirit after the spirit stone was placed, most of them were abnormally empty. Xiaohua looked at it carefully, then reached out and stroked the puppet's arm. With a thought, the puppet disappeared and was absorbed into his mind. This puppet really doesn't have any life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to store it in this space. When Xiaohua discovered the mysterious space in his mind, he also tried to absorb some small living animals into it. The result was, without exception, failure. Not even an ant could be absorbed into it. Coming out of the secret room, Xiaohua took off the yellow talisman, and the passage immediately disappeared, returning to its original smooth stone wall. The yellow talisman also flashed, ignited, and automatically turned into ashes. Xiaohua didn't need to report to Xiao Yuehong. His figure flew up and directly flew towards the lone staff peak. In fact, according to Xiaohua's plan, he should go to the Cherishing Flower Peak now and transplant the various spirit grasses in the medicine garden into his space. But thinking about how the space needed to be tidied up by the puppet, he could only wait until the soil was tidied up before he could plant them. While flying towards the lone staff peak, Xiaohua controlled the puppet. The puppet was driven by Xiaohua, and with the spirit stone providing spiritual energy, it automatically cleared out a large area of about 10 zhang in radius in Xiaohua's space. It was divided into several pieces and slowly tidied up, preparing to plant different spirit grasses. Time flew by. Unknowingly, more than 10 days had passed. In the space of Xiaohua's mind, under the puppet's reclamation and cultivation, the 10 zhang radius of land had been leveled and planted with the various spirit grasses in the medicine garden of the Cherishing Flower Peak. The seed of the exquisite grass was planted alone in one place. Of course, the absorption fruit used to refine the Peiyuan pill had also been transplanted by Xiaohua. He actually treated this space as his own private medicine garden. However, on the surface, things seemed to be progressing smoothly without any flaws. Xiaohua could vaguely feel that something was not right. But as for what exactly was wrong, he could not pinpoint it out. He only knew that there must be something that was wrong. During these 10 days, Xiaohua spent most of his time on the Cherishing Flower Peak. He didn't have much time on the Lone Staff Peak. Because Gong Mingwei and the other two were in the Tranquil Heart Cave, cultivating with their eyes closed to resist the bone-piercing cold wind, they didn't have much time to give pointers to Xiaohua's cultivation. Even Zhang Qingxiao, who couldn't stay idle the most, lost interest after telling Xiaohua a few times. After all, The cultivation method of the first layer of the qi refining realm was very shallow. Xiaohua had long since become familiar with it, and Zhang Qingxiao had already given him pointers. However, Xiaohua's inability to advance seemed to have nothing to do with his familiarity with the cultivation method. On this day, after Xiaohua finished his work in the medicine garden, he checked the half-dead spirit grasses in the space of his mind, as well as the exquisite grass that didn't show any signs of germination. His figure flashed and flew to the top of the lone staff peak. The situation in the Tranquil Heart Cave was the same as before. Xiaohua said a few words to Xiao Xinrui and the others, asked a few more questions, then turned around to go back. However, when his eyes fell on the cold pond at the foot of the mountain, he couldn't help but stare blankly. At this time, above the cold pond, water vapor was rising and smoke was curling up. It felt very strange. Xiaohua's figure landed on the edge of the cold pond, and a warm feeling greeted him. Xiaohua was even more surprised. Could it be that this is different from the cold pond of Cherishing Flower Peak? In the mountain stream of Cherishing Flower Peak, there was also a pond about the same size as this cold pond. The water inside was bone-chilling cold. Xiaohua had once tried to put his hand into the water, and the coldness was like a knife that pierced his bones. Therefore, he very naturally thought that the water in this pond was also cold. However, when he placed his hand into the pond, the warmth of his hand made him pleasantly surprised. This pond water was indeed warm, completely different from the cold pond. Xiaohua straightened his body, and without any hesitation, he took off his clothes. With a plop sound, he jumped into the pond water and began to swim very carefreely. In the entire Yellow Flower Peak, there were only 5 of them, Shang Huaming and the others. There was no 6th person. Now that 3 of them were locked up in the Tranquil Heart Cave, who could still come and peek at him? After playing in the warm pond for a while, Xiaohua lay on his back on the surface of the water. Above his head was the sky between the mountain peaks. The few dark clouds in the sky were blown away from time to time, but the wind in the sky was still not small. Thinking about the coldness of Lone Staff Peak and the hot spring in this pond, Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh at the miraculous nature of creation. This pond is so warm, but it's very far from Cherishing Flower Peak. Little White is unlucky and can only endure the cold in this cold pond. Xiaohua couldn't help but think of Little White in the cold pond. Just as he was thinking, Xiaohua suddenly felt his hair stand on end, as if he was being closely watched by some monster. He straightened up, but before he could stand firmly in the water, a white line shot out from the pond like lightning. Xiaohua was shocked at first, but when that white line flew in front of his eyes, his face revealed a happy expression. He stretched out his arm and said with a smile, "Ha, Little White? Why did you also run over here?" A small white snake that was as thick as a chopstick and over 2 feet long flew in front of Xiaohua. It coiled its soft body around Xiaohua's outstretched arm and raised its oval-shaped snake head. Its slender, scarlet tongue rapidly extended and contracted. Its 2 eyes seemed to understand Xiaohua's words as it stared straight at Xiaohua. This Little White turned out to be a little white snake. Speaking of this little white snake, it was also extremely faded with Xiaohua. It was the first creature Xiaohua saw after he woke up, and it was even a bit earlier than Xiao Yuehong who saved him. That day, Xiao Yuehong brought Xiaohua back to Yellow Flower Ridge. Because Xiaohua didn't have any injuries and Xiao Yuehong was also helpless, he could only put Xiaohua in a room. After Xiaohua woke up a few days later, he didn't see anyone, so he followed the mountain path down Missing Worship Peak. Coincidentally, 2 days before Xiaohua woke up, thunder rumbled in Yellow Flower Ridge and rain fell unceasingly. The gullies on Missing Worship Peak were filled with rainwater mixed with mud as they flowed down the mountain. Xiaohua was careless and fell into the mountain stream, following the flow of the water into Cherishing Flower Peak's cold pond. Just as Xiaohua was struggling to stand up from the cold pond, he saw the little white snake. At that time, the little white snake was already on the verge of death, almost without any vitality. It was like a little white rope that was rippling along the pond. Xiaohua only thought that the little white snake was dead and didn't care. But when the little white snake touched Xiao Hua's arm along with the waves, he was caught off guard and bit Xiao Hua's arm. Xiao Hua was naturally shocked. He reached out his hand and immediately grabbed the little white snake's 7 inches, wanting to pinch it to death. But just as Xiao Hua's hand was about to exert force, Xiao Hua unexpectedly discovered that he could understand the little white snake's eyes. It was a kind of pitiful, helpless, pleading expression. Following the corner of the little white snake's eyes, he could actually see teardrops falling in an instant. Xiao Hua's heart softened. He looked at the place where the little white snake had bitten him. There were no signs of being poisoned. He only felt that his blood was being sucked into the little white snake's body. And his own body didn't have any abnormal reaction. Therefore, Xiao Hua stretched out his arm and allowed the little white snake to bite him. Speaking of which, it was also strange. After the little white snake sucked Xiao Hua's blood, in the time it took to drink a cup of tea, it seemed to be full of vigor and vitality. It let go of Xiao Hua's mouth and nodded very gratefully at him. Then, it drilled into the depths of the cold pond and disappeared. And there was only a small wound on Xiao Hua's arm. There wasn't any sign of being poisoned. At this time, Xiao Yuehong chased down from the mountain and pulled Xiao Hua out of the cold pond. Then, he brought him back to Minushi Peak. Later, Xiao Hua stayed at Yellow Flower Ridge and took care of the medicine garden at Cherishing Flower Peak. In his free time, he would also go to the cold pond at the foot of the mountain. Every time he came, the little white snake would also appear on time. It was like an old friend, accompanying Xiao Hua on the grass beside the cold pond. After a long time, one person and one snake became extremely familiar with each other. Xiao Hua then called the little white snake Little White. Chapter 1232. Little White was very intelligent. It seemed to be able to understand Xiao Hua's simple words. Even when Xiao Hua was bored and said some random things, Little White would frequently nod its head, very much like a qualified friend, patiently listening. Xiao Hua also felt strange in his heart. He once intentionally asked Xiao Yuehong if he knew that there was a psychic little white snake in the cold pond. Unfortunately, Xiao Yuehong thought for a long time and only shook his head. After a long time, he found some clues from Shang Huaming's ancient records. However, Xiao Yuehong told Xiao Hua that there might be a psychic python in Yellow Flower Ridge. It had lived longer than Shang Huaming. However, it was a huge python, a python that also cultivated. It wasn't the tiny little white snake that Xiao Hua spoke of. Of course, this was only a possibility. Shang Huaming hadn't seen that huge python for many generations. Xiao Hua heard this and didn't take it to heart. After all, there were only 5 people in Yellow Flower Ridge. Apart from Xiao Hua, the other 4 were all cultivators. Xiao Hua also cherished Little White, this playmate that wasn't a playmate. However, Xiao Hua had always seen Little White in the cold pond of Shihua Peak. He also didn't know that the pond of Lone Staff Peak was actually connected to the cold pond of Shihua Peak. Therefore, he didn't expect Little White to appear here. The little white snake coiled around Xiao Hua's arm and looked at Xiao Hua. Its small snake head slightly swayed, as if it was amusing Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "The pond here is abnormally warm. You probably already knew. Why didn't you tell me? The pond of Shihua Peak is extremely cold. There's no way to play. Next time when you come, you have to call me." The little white snake obviously couldn't speak. Its tongue flickered, and Xiao Hua also treated it as if it understood. "Let's go, I'll jump down from there." Xiao Hua raised his head and looked at the call above the pond. Soon after, Xiao Hua slowly climbed to the call with the little white snake coiled around his arm. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to stand firmly on the mountain rock, Little White's body suddenly tensed up as if it felt something. It straightened its head and looked around vigilantly. However, when Xiao Hua straightened up and wanted to jump down from the mountain rock, nothing unusual happened. What Xiao Hua and Little White Snake didn't know was that, far away from them, a speck of light was flying towards them at a speed that was imperceptible to the naked eye. The light particles were extremely small and weak. Under the sunlight, they couldn't be seen. Moreover, the trajectory of the light particles was very strange. First, they flashed in the air for a moment, then disappeared into the void. When they reappeared again, they were already very far away from where they were before. Just as the light particles appeared in the distance, a bracelet-like thing suddenly appeared in the mysterious space in Xiao Hua's mind. The bracelet-like thing emitted a powerful fluctuation from Xiao Hua's mind and spread in all directions. The fluctuation was extremely fast, and it only took an instant for it to reach where the light particle was. The light particle was swept by the fluctuation and immediately trembled. It actually changed its direction and gradually shot towards Xiao Hua. "Ha, watch me." How could Xiao Hua know about the changes in his mind? He only laughed and jumped out from the mountain valley. He flipped a few times in the air and was about to fall into the pool. At this moment, the light particles were attracted by the fluctuation of the bracelet-like thing and, coincidentally, came out from the void behind Xiao Hua's head. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, it entered the back of his head and disappeared without a trace. The little white snake on Xiao Hua's arm didn't even have time to turn around. Everything had already happened. Immediately after, Xiao Hua's body fell into the pool with a plop. The light particles shot into the back of Xiao Hua's head and appeared in the center of the bracelet-like thing. They steadily stopped there and didn't move. The bracelet-like thing absorbed the light particles and immediately started to spin rapidly, emitting a brilliant brilliance. Xiao Hua, who was flying under the control of the bracelet-like thing, only felt that his eyes were filled with light. It was as if his entire body was immersed in the light. In his world, there was only light, a dazzling light. Apart from light, there was nothing else. Apart from being dazzling, this light also pierced his entire mind. Before he could think of anything else, Xiao Hua fell into a coma. The little white snake followed Xiao Hua into the pool and immediately fell from Xiao Hua's arm and swam in the pool. The moment the little white snake landed on the surface of the pool, a strange thing happened. The little white snake instantly became incomparably huge. Its entire body was even bigger than a common water tank. At the same time, the little white snake also became extremely long. Its entire body coiled up and almost filled the entire pool. At this moment, the little white snake raised its head high. It didn't know what had happened to Xiao Hua's body. It looked around vigilantly. Swish, swish, swish. The little white snake flicked its tongue a few times and its body expanded once again. Huge golden scales gradually grew on its snow-white skin. Below its abdomen, there were 4 places where the phantom of claws gradually appeared. The strangest thing was that the little white snake's head also gradually changed. Horns grew on its head, its eyes became bigger, and its mouth became wider. It looked exactly like a dragon's head. Kacha kacha! A burst of heavenly thunder suddenly flashed in the air above the lone staff peak. The air beside the tranquil heart cave also gradually turned crimson. Hearing the sound of thunder, the little white snake's eyes were filled with fear. It slightly shook its gradually transforming dragon head and twisted its body. With a flash of brilliance, all the illusions disappeared. The little white snake returned to its previous appearance. The heavenly thunder in the air also disappeared. The crimson color in the air also seemed to have been blown away by the wind. At first, the entire space was filled with light. Soon after, Xiao Hua's eyes were pitch black. That darkness was very absolute and very still. There wasn't the slightest bit of light and there wasn't the slightest bit of movement. He didn't know how much time had passed. In an instant, perhaps 10,000 years, perhaps even longer, in this darkness, at a point extremely far away or extremely near, there was a sudden change. First, it constantly vibrated, emitting a kind of mysterious fluctuation that instantly spread throughout the entire space. Then that point turned from endless darkness to transparent. Then it turned crimson, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, all the way to purple. Every color evolved into a kind of fluctuation that spread throughout the entire space. Finally, the purple color lasted for the longest time, and the fluctuation was also the most intense. After the purple color passed, the entire space stopped vibrating. It was only a moment of silence. All the colors just now appeared at that point, and the entire space was filled with the 7 kinds of fluctuations. At this moment, that point suddenly lit up. Unexpectedly, A ray of white light flashed from there. In an instant, the white light filled the entire space. At the same time, the chaotic fluctuations in the space also changed into an even more mysterious vibration. The vibration filled the entire space, as if the space was filled with white light. Xiaohua's thoughts suddenly flashed through the white light. The entire space immediately disappeared, and the white light also disappeared. He suddenly opened his eyes. First, a blank white light appeared in Xiaohua's eyes. Then, only then did his eyes reveal his pitch-black pupils. Looking at the long and narrow sky in the sky, as well as the clouds in the sky that were torn apart by the fierce wind, Xiaohua gradually came back to his senses. At this moment, he was floating on top of the pool. What happened? Xiaohua was greatly shocked. He rubbed his head and straightened up from the pool. The little white snake was still swimming in the pool beside him. Seeing Xiaohua wake up, it also intimately swam over, as if nothing had happened just now. What's going on? I jumped down from the mountain rock, and everything before my eyes was bright. I don't know anything? How long have I been unconscious? Just what happened? Xiaohua stepped on the water and looked around in astonishment. The pool was still steaming, and the little white snake was still coiling around his arm. Nothing had changed, as if nothing had happened. However, the scene produced by the light just now was deeply engraved in his mind. If nothing had happened, then where did this memory come from? Just as Xiaohua was looking around, trying to find some clues, a red brilliance suddenly flew down from the sky. That brilliance directly arrived in front of Xiaohua and steadily stopped in front of him. Xiaohua frowned. He reached out his hand and pinched it. A trace of magic power was transmitted over, and that crimson light broke with a poof. Xiao Yuehong's voice transmitted over, Xiaohua, quickly come to the guest hall. Guest hall? Seeing the sound transmission talisman slowly disappear, Xiaohua secretly said, it seems, this guest hall hasn't been opened yet? What kind of important guest came today? After receiving the sect master's order, Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He didn't have time to look for the reason why he was unconscious. He hurriedly put on his clothes and went straight to the guest hall of Min Worship Peak. When he arrived in front of the guest hall, Xiao Yuehong was already wearing a Taoist robe and holding a horsetail whisk in his hand, standing there majestically. Why didn't you change your clothes? Seeing Xiaohua still dressed up, Xiao Yuehong frowned and said, Disciple was at Lone Staff Peak just now. After receiving the sect master's message, I immediately came here. I didn't have time to go back and change. Oh, what about the three of them? Are they still obedient? Xiao Yuehong's face slightly warmed as he asked casually. Yes, senior brother and senior sister are all diligent in cultivation. Presumably, after 100 days, their cultivation will definitely reach a higher level. AI, how can it be as easy as over there? How can I not know their cultivation? Without the help of external objects, foundation establishment is hopeless. Sect Master, do you need disciple to go back and change my clothes? Xiaohua respectfully asked. No need, you are also not an official disciple. Dressing up like this can't be considered treating guests poorly. Xiao Yuehong said with a smile. Xiaohua's eyes turned, and he asked curiously, Our Shanweiming Peak has never had any guests. Who came today? He, won't you know when you get there? As Xiao Yuehong said this, he waved his big sleeve. His boat-shaped magic tool fell to the ground and instantly grew bigger. When he got on the flying boat, Xiaohua also followed closely behind. With a whoosh, the flying boat flew out of the mountain and into the fog that never dispersed all year round. After flying to a spacious place at the foot of the mountain, Xiao Yuehong landed the flying boat. Xiaohua looked around. This place was completely different from the surrounding mountains. Not to mention the picturesque trees planted in disorder, nor the corresponding brook, pavilion, and mountain scenery. Just by looking at the large open space paved with square bluestone and a few jade tables and stone stools on the ground, Xiaohua knew that this was probably the place where Shanweiming temporarily received guests. Sure enough, Xiao Yuehong walked down the flying boat and patted his waist. A palm-sized jade pendant appeared in his hand. He sent his magic power into the jade pendant, and the jade pendant immediately glowed with a dazzling brilliance. Seeing the brilliance of the jade pendant, Xiaohua very naturally thought of the inexplicable white light that filled his eyes just now. Seeing the brilliance, Xiao Yuehong pointed his finger. The brilliance rose from the sky, circled in the air, and rushed into the fog outside the mountain. In an instant, a spacious passage appeared in the fog. Immediately, a clear voice sounded, "Sect Master Xiao, long time no see." Following that voice, a flying boat came out of the fog passage. It flew not far in front of Xiao Yuehong and landed. 2 men and a woman walked out of the flying boat. Xiao Yuehong's face was full of smiles. He took a few steps forward and cupped his hands. "Sect Master Jiang, it's been a long time since we last met. How are you?" Hearing this, Xiao Hua somewhat understood and thought to himself, "Could it be? This is the 100 Herbs sect that senior apprentice sister mentioned a few days ago? What are they doing here?" With this thought, he couldn't help but secretly size them up. Sect Master Jiang looked to be in his 40s. His skin was very good, and his hair was pitch black. Behind him was a young man dressed in a turquoise robe, holding a folding fan in his hand. His features were handsome, and he looked rather elegant. He should be the young sect master of 100 Herbs Gate, Jiang Fan. Next to Jiang Fan was a tall and slender woman. She was dressed in a light red robe. Her face was fair, and she had round eyes and a fine nose. Her hair was like the clouds, and there was an air of arrogance about her that was very threatening. Seeing Xiao Hua size her up, the woman's eyes slightly slanted. Seeing Xiao Hua's clothes, she already understood. She swept a glance at Xiao Hua, then looked at Xiao Yuehong. While Xiao Hua was sizing up the people from 100 Herbs sect, Sect Master Jiang Jiantong also cupped his hands in return. "Thanks to Sect Master Zhao's good fortune, I've already extinguished the desire to win these past few years. I've only stayed in the sect to train the disciples and concentrate on the sect's affairs. I've rarely seen you old friends. A few days ago, when I heard my son talk about E-City, I couldn't help but feel nostalgic. That's why I brought my son and daughter to see you old friends." As he spoke, he turned around and waved his hand, saying to Jiang Fan, "Fan, come and greet Sect Master Xiao." Hearing this, Jiang Fan and Jiang stepped forward and bowed in greeting. Xiao Yuehong was bewildered, but he put on a smile on his face and said with a wave of his sleeve, "Forget it, forget it. I haven't seen you for a long time. Sect Master Jiang's son and daughter are already so big. Ha, isn't that so? This old man has seen Sect Master Zhao's beloved daughter when she was young. She's already slim and elegant now." Jiang Jiantong said with a smile, "Fan, give our gift to Sect Master Xiao." "Yes, father." Jiang Fan nodded and patted the storage pouch at his waist. He took out a few jade bottles and handed them over with a smile. "Sect Master Xiao, this is my sect's secret Peiyuan pill, the Snow Jade Pill. Please accept it as a token of my respect." Chapter 12:33. This. Xiao Yuehong was shocked. He waved his hand and said, "Sect Master Jiang, this gift is too precious. How can I accept it?" "Hee, Sect Master Xiao, you don't have to be so polite. My 100 Herbs sect is famous for its pills. Although these pills are precious, they aren't extremely rare in my 100 Herbs sect. I brought my children here to visit, so of course I can't treat them lightly." Seeing that he couldn't refuse, Xiao Yuehong gave Xiao Hua a look, and Xiao Hua stepped forward to receive it. Jiang Jiantong looked at Xiao Hua and smiled. Which disciple of Sect Master Xiao is this?" "Oh, this is my Shang Huaming's pill refinement boy. He's only at the first level of qi refinement and hasn't been accepted into the sect yet." Xiao Yuehong explained with a smile. "Then your sect's disciples, and your daughter?" Jiang Jiantong asked curiously. Seeing Jiang Jiantong's question, Jiang Fan's face was filled with anticipation, and he pricked up his ears. Seeing Jiang Fan's expression, not to mention Xiao Yuehong, even Xiao Hua could see some clues. This guy, could it be that he's here to see senior sister? Xiao Hua was secretly on guard. He knew that the 2 disciples of the sect, Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao, both had feelings for Xiao Xianrui. However, Xiao Xinrui's closeness to the two of them was average. It was hard to tell who was better. This matter was an open secret of the Death Flower Underworld sect. Thus, Jiang Fan's handsome appearance immediately became sanctimonious in Xiao Hua's eyes. I'm sure Sect Master Jiang knows that my daughter and disciple caused trouble in E-City, so he punished them to reflect on their mistakes in the Tranquil Heart Cave. Xiao Yuehong also glanced at Jiang Fan, his expression unchanged as he said calmly. Sect Master Xiao, this is where you are wrong. I have also heard about the matter of your daughter and disciple from my son. Their performance should be praised with the word good. Why did you punish them? Jiang Jiantong was quite moved. Hearing this, Xiao Yuehong smiled and didn't say anything. He only looked around and said with a smile, "This place is simple and inconvenient for guests. Sect Master Jiang, please." As he spoke, he boarded the flying boat and turned to Xiao Hua, who followed behind him and said, "Go to the courtyard and pick some fresh fruits to treat the guests. While you're at it, let your senior brothers and the others come out first." "Yes, sect leader." Xiao Hua nodded and stood respectfully at the side. After Jiang Jiantong's group of 3 boarded his flying shuttle and flew off with Xiao Yuehong, he cast a flight talisman and directly headed towards the Tranquil Cave on Solitary Staff Peak. When the 3 people in the Tranquil Cave heard that sect leader Jiang of the 100 Herbs Gate and his 2 children had come to visit, they all had different reactions. There was a trace of joy on Xiao Xinrui's face at first, but when she saw the gloomy faces of the 2 senior brothers next to her, she immediately restrained herself, lowered her head obediently, and did not speak. Zhang Qingxiao waved her hand and shouted, I'm not going. I want to cultivate here. I can't be bothered to see them. Who knows what kind of intentions they have?" Looking at Xiao Xinrui's face, Zhang Qingxiao felt a chill in her heart and her voice became lower and lower. Gong Mingwei bit his lips and also saw Xiao Xinrui's expression. He sighed and whispered, "Let's go. Master asked us to go, so let's go. If we don't go, we'll embarrass Master for no reason. Moreover, we still don't know why they're here." As for why they're here, Gong Mingwei did not say clearly, and no one asked. Xiao Hua followed the 3 people out of the Tranquil Cave. When he saw the 3 people's figures flying away, there was already a trace of estrangement. He could not help but sigh and went straight to the herb garden to pick some fruits. On the Dawn Rain continent, as long as one had some cultivation, they would not eat the food of the mortal world. Therefore, Hua Ming, like the other sects, had planted some spirit fruits in the herb garden. When they were free, they would satisfy their cravings and entertain guests. Xiao Hua picked some fruits that were unique to Yellow Flower Ridge. Just as he was about to fly up, he saw the spirit herbs in the herb garden and thought, I wonder how the spirit herbs in the space are doing? If it's not working, I'll take out the puppets first and leave them in the herb garden. As he thought, he looked into the space. This look was not important, but the strange scene in the space caused him to be stunned on the spot. What he saw was a square cube floating above the space, slowly rotating. Every time it rotated, a brilliant light would shoot out from the cube, illuminating the entire space. It was like the sun in the outside world. What's going on? Xiao Hua was so shocked that he asked himself more than 10 questions in a row. Previously, although the space was pitch black, it was in Xiao Hua's mind. He could sense everything in the space, and it had nothing to do with whether there was light or not. He also very naturally ignored the problem of light. After all, there was no light in the storage bag. But, now that there was light, he could see everything in the space. The spirit herbs that were standing upright, the exquisite grass that had not yet sprouted, the messy piles outside the herb garden, and the puppet standing outside the herb garden. Xiao Hua had a very familiar feeling. Why is it no different from the herb garden in front of me? Xiao Hua did not seem to understand the difference between the two. Oh, right, did something happen when I fainted at the foot of the Lone Staff Peak just now? Was it because this inexplicable cube appeared in my space that I fainted? It had to be said that Xiao Hua's guess was very close to reality, but who could he verify it with? It was already shocking that there was a storage space in the mind, and this space also had light. This Even the little white snake could not casually say this, right? After being stunned for a moment, Xiaohua did not have time to take out the puppet. He hurriedly flew up and rushed to the reception hall. The reception hall was a huge hall on the west side of the Mingli Peak. When Xiaohua arrived, Gong Mingwei and the other two had already arrived. Shang Huaming and the 100 Herbs Gate were sitting on the host and guest seats, and seemed to be chatting happily. However, the expressions of the young disciples of the two sects were somewhat different. Jiang Fan, the young master of the 100 Herbs Gate, had a slightly flushed and excited face. From time to time, he stole glances at Xiao Xinrui, and then very carefully glanced sideways at the two elders who were talking. Jiang Yen of the 100 Herbs Gate had a curious look on her face. Her big eyes rolled around as she stared at Xiao Xinrui, carefully observing her. When she inadvertently glanced at Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao, a slight disdain appeared on her face. Under the bright eyes of the two people of the 100 Herbs Gate, Xiao Xinrui was both shy and slightly angry. She could only lower her head with a bashful face. Needless to say, Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao's faces were extremely ugly. They glared at Jiang Fan from time to time, but Jiang Fan's eyes were full of Xiao Xinrui, so how could he notice? Seeing Xiaohua bring up the fruits, Xiao Yuehong smiled and said, "Sect leader Jiang, come. My yellow flower ridge cannot be compared to your medicine farmer peak, but we also have rare fruits. This is my yellow flower ridge's specialty, please come and have a taste." With a wave of his hand, 3 fruits floated in the air and flew in front of the 3 people of the 100 Herbs Gate. Jiang Jiantong and Jiang Yen smiled and took the fruits, while Jiang Fan was startled. Then he embarrassedly took one and put it in his mouth. After tasting the fruits, Jiang Jiantong smiled and said, "My son and daughter have never been to Yellow Flower Ridge. Please take them out and enjoy the beautiful scenery." Sect leader Xiao, what do you think? Of course, Mingwei, you 3 take young Master Jiang and Miss Jiang out and walk around. Yes, disciple obeys. Gong Mingwei stood up and bowed. Still glaring at Jiang Fan, he raised his hand and said, "Please." Xiaohua was not Shang Huaming's official disciple, so of course he could not accompany them. He only stood behind Xiao Yuehong, waiting on the side. Seeing that all the disciples had left, Jiang Jiantong cupped his hands and said, "Sect leader Xiao, this time I came to visit Shang Huaming. I actually have 2 very important matters." Please speak, sect leader Jiang. This one is all ears. Xiao Yuehong naturally knew that he had important matters to discuss. The first matter is that the war between immortals and devils has just ended. Countless immortal seniors have fallen in the war. I'm afraid that the cultivation forces of the Dawn Rain continent will undergo a great change. My 100 Herbs Gate and Shang Huaming are both insignificant sects, so it's extremely easy for us to be implicated in this turbulent situation. This one is thinking that if the 2 sects can form an alliance and combine our strength, wouldn't it be better to resist the sudden change? Here, Jiang Jiantong glanced at Xiao Yuehong's expression and continued, "This one knows that 100 Herbs Gate's cultivation method only allows one to cultivate to the late foundation establishment stage. It doesn't touch on how to condense a core or cultivate a golden core. This is my 100 Herbs Gate's shortcoming. However, my 100 Herbs Gate has many disciples, and many of them are outstanding. We have 2 foundation establishment disciples, and Fan has also reached the late Qi refinement stage. With the support of my 100 Herbs Gate's medicinal pills, rushing to the foundation establishment stage is not a delusion." Sect leader Jiang is right. Xiao Yuehong's expression didn't change as he nodded slightly. Every 1,000 years, the war between immortals and devils will cause great changes in the Dawn Rain continent. This time is no exception. If our 2 sects can work together, it'll be much better than fighting alone. Moreover, sect leader Jiang has clearly stated the strengths and weaknesses of our 2 sections. Shang Huaming, do indeed have a shortcoming of lacking outstanding disciples. Sect leader Xiao, does this mean that you agree? Jiang Jiantong exclaimed in surprise. Of course. How could this one not agree to something that benefits both sides? However, how our 2 sects will assist each other in the future still needs to be discussed in detail. Xiao Yuehong said with a smile. Good. Jiang Jiantong raised his hand, and Xiao Yuehong did the same. The two of them clapped their hands together as if they were making an oath. Haha, since sect leader Xiao has agreed to the alliance between our two sects, then this one second matter is easy to discuss. Please speak, sect leader Jiang. If the first matter is official, then the second matter is a private matter. Jiang Jiantong said with a smile. Oh no, this guy. He's going to talk about senior sister. Xiao Hua, who was standing by the side, immediately thought. Sect leader Xiao, what do you think this is? Unexpectedly, sect leader Jiang didn't mention Xiao Xianrui. Instead, he clapped his hands, took out 2 jade bottles from his storage pouch, and handed them over. What is this? Xiao Yuehong took them curiously, opened them, and smelled them. His expression immediately changed as he exclaimed, This is a Foundation Establishment pill? Hee, that's right. These are the 2 Foundation Establishment pills that my 100 Herbs sect has collected. Jiang Jiantong said with a smile. What does sect leader Jiang mean by this? Xiao Yuehong regained his composure and returned the 2 jade bottles to Jiang Jiantong. This is a Foundation Establishment pill? Why are you returning something that is already in your hands? Xiao Hua looked on anxiously from the side. It's nothing. Sect leader Xiao. Jiang Jiantong took the Foundation Establishment pills, but didn't put them back into his storage pouch. Instead, he placed them on the table next to him, glanced at Xiao Hua, and said with a smile to Xiao Yuehong, This is my 100 Herbs sect's betrothal gift. Sect leader Xiao, please consider marrying your beloved to my son. As expected, this guy has bad intentions, using the Foundation Establishment pills as bait. Xiao Hua, who was standing at the side, already understood Jiang Jiantong's intentions and cursed inwardly. Although he was already mentally prepared, Xiao Yuehong was still shocked by 100 Herbs sect's generosity. He didn't know how to answer. These 2 Foundation Establishment pills were extremely precious items. Since they were betrothal gifts, they should be handled by Shang Huaming. Xiao Xianrui was going to marry into 100 Herbs sect, so Xiao Yuehong naturally didn't need to use the Foundation Establishment pills. Once she entered 100 Herbs sect, she would be a member of 100 Herbs sect. Naturally, she would be given the Foundation Establishment pills. And these 2 Foundation Establishment pills should be given to Shang Huaming's Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao. Xiao Yuehong was very clear about the aptitudes of these 2 people. With the help of the pills, the 2 of them wouldn't have any problems entering the Foundation Establishment realm. 100 Herbs sect took out 2 Foundation Establishment pills at once, solving the problem of Shang Huaming's orthodoxy and creating 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators for Shang Huaming. How could Xiao Yuehong easily refuse? Sect leader Xiao, there's no need to be so polite. Since our 2 sects are in an alliance, we're like brothers. If your sect's disciples have outstanding achievements, our 100 Herbs sect will also benefit. I'm also aware of the aptitudes of your 2 disciples. If they were in my 100 Herbs sect, with the support of our pills, they would have already entered the Foundation Establishment realm. I'm just fulfilling your wish. Seeing that Xiao Yuehong was still hesitating, Jiang Jiantong continued, Ever since my son returned from E-City, he's been talking about your daughter. I think he has a very good impression of her. To tell you the truth, sect leader Xiao, in the past few days, I've also inquired about your daughter. I know that she's a good girl, as pure as ice and as pure as jade. That's why my son came to Shang Huaming to propose marriage. Moreover, based on my observation, your daughter seems to have a good impression of my son. This kind of mutual consent, as elders, how can we not accept it? How could Xiao Yuehong not know Xiao Xianrui's reaction and expression? However, he also knew the feelings of his 2 disciples towards his daughter. He was originally worried about how the 3 of them would deal with the most complicated matter in the world, but he didn't expect that 100 Herbs sect would come out of nowhere. Seeing that Xiao Yuehong's face was somewhat moved, Xiao Hua's throat almost stretched out a hand. Sect leader, please don't agree. Don't believe this guy. Perhaps Xiao Hua's prayer was effective, for Xiao Yuehong thought carefully for a moment, then his face became calm again. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you for your kindness, sect leader Jiang. It's easy to agree to this matter. Jiang Jiantong's face lit up. Just as he was about to get up, Xiao Yuehong hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Please wait for me to finish speaking, sect leader Jiang." Chapter 12:34. Hee, I've been rude. Jiang Jiantong saw that Xiao Yuehong didn't directly refuse and knew that he had some confidence, so he couldn't help but smile. Sect Master Jiang also knows that I only have one daughter, little Ru. She has been spoiled since she was young, and she lost her mother when she was young. I feel guilty towards her. This marriage is a matter of life and death. If I didn't ask for her opinion, I wouldn't dare to easily agree to Sect Master Jiang's request. Your daughter's mother's matter? I've heard a little about it. Sect Master Xiao dotes on your daughter so much that I'm not worthy of it. My daughter has been beaten quite a bit under my hands, hee. Hearing this, Xiao Yuehong nodded slightly. Since Sect Master Jiang knows my thoughts, then please postpone the marriage proposal until I ask. Little Rue's thoughts. What do you think? Of course. I didn't think it would be so simple. Besides, I and the other elders are just thinking about our children. As for where they go, it's all their fate. This time, I brought Canine Girl with me because I wanted her to get to know your daughter. I wanted her to learn from your daughter's dignified manner, so that the young disciples of our two sects can interact with each other and have more opportunities for each other. Hearing this, not only did Xiao Yuehong's heart move, but Xiao Hua also understood. This guy knows about the matter between eldest senior brother and second senior brother. He's using his daughter as bait again. Xiao Hua didn't know what Xiao Yuehong was thinking, but looking at Xiao Yuehong's smiling face, he was afraid that it wasn't quite the same as what Xiao Hua was thinking. Sure enough, Xiao Yuehong clapped his hands and said, Sect Master Jiang is right. My 3 disciples haven't left the mountain for a long time and only know how to cultivate in seclusion. They have less contact with the outside world. In the future, the young people of our 2 sects will have to interact more. It will definitely be beneficial for them. Ah, very true, very true. Jiang Jiantong smiled and waved his hand, putting the foundation establishment pills on the table into his storage bag. He said, Sect Master Xiao, if you have any good news, please send a flying sword message. I'll definitely rush over as soon as possible. Present this betrothal gift. Well said, well said. Xiao Yuehong smiled and said, Sovereign Jiang, please try the fruit again. No, it's getting late. I should return to Medicine Farmer Peak. Jiang Jiantong shook his head. Xiao Hua, go and call your senior brothers back. Don't tell them about this matter. Yes, disciple understands. Xiao Hua's mouth was filled with bitterness as he bowed. After Xiao Hua left, Jiang Jiantong smiled and said, This disciple of yours is also strange. If an ordinary person is unable to cultivate, then they wouldn't be able to enter the door at all. But he, on the other hand, can easily enter the door. Why can't he make any progress? Sigh, I don't know either. However, he is very strong and is quite polite. His behavior is very proper and his character is good. Therefore, I decided to keep him and see if there is a chance in the future. If you're still in the first layer of aura refining in another 8 to 10 years, I'll make an exception and take you in. In any case, I, Shang Huaming, am from a small sect. I have nothing to worry about. That's right, that's right. Sovereign Xiao is benevolent. If it were my 100 Herbs Gate, I'm afraid we would have been expelled from Medicine Farmer Peak long ago. Jiang Jiantong echoed. Xiao Hua left the guest hall and searched for a long time before he found the 5 people in a place with beautiful scenery. At this time, the 5 people were divided into 3 groups, each standing in front of an unknown flower tree. The setting sun in the west was shining on the fiery red flowers, reflecting the bright red color on Xiao Xinrue's body. Her white and tender face was pink. She was really a peach blossom beauty. Jiang Yan was standing next to Xiao Xinrue. She seemed to be very familiar with Xiao Xinrue. She whispered something to her and from time to time pointed to the flower tree and the sky. The 2 of them laughed like silver bells. Jiang Fan was holding a folding fan in his hand. He looked like a deity as he accompanied the two of them with a smile. Although he didn't say anything, his expressive eyes often met Xiao Xinrui's eyes. Poor Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao, standing on the other side of Xiao Xinrui, they looked a little dull. Compared to Jiang Fan, they were much less elegant. Moreover, the two of them looked very gloomy, which was incompatible with the beautiful scenery around them. Xiao Yuehong was still thinking that his two disciples could have some kind of relationship with Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan simply didn't give them a second glance. Well, perhaps her first glance was also a look of disdain. Seeing Xiao Hua flying over, Gong Mingwei's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and said, "Xiao Hua, is Master calling me back?" "Yes," reporting to eldest senior brother, "yes." Xiao Hua, of course, gave Gong Mingwei an extremely respectful answer. "Sister Yan, in this case, let's go back first. My Shanghuaming has a lot of beautiful scenery, and we can't see all of them in a short time. Anyway, now that you and I know each other, there will be many opportunities in the future. Let's look around carefully?" "Yes, Sister Rui, my Yaonong Peak also has a lot of beautiful scenery. Although it can't be compared with Yellow Flower Ridge, it can be interesting. In the future, when I invite you, you can't refuse." "Hee, Sister Yan's invitation, how can I refuse?" Xiao Xinrui laughed. Hearing this, Jiang Yan was very satisfied and gave Jiang Fan a complacent look. Who knew that Jiang Fan only looked at Xiao Xinrui with a smile and didn't pay attention to her at all. "Let's go." Xiao Xinrui smiled, holding Jiang Yan's hand, jumped up, and went straight back to the reception hall. Gong Mingwei was very unwilling to accompany Jiang Fan behind, but his figure fell behind by a lot. Zhang Qingxiao grabbed Xiao Hua, looked at the four people's figures gradually disappearing, and whispered, "Little junior brother, how was it? What did Master say to old Jiang in the reception hall?" Xiao Hua calmly looked at Zhang Qingxiao, shook his head slightly and said, "The sect master ordered, I didn't dare to say anything." Zhang Qingxiao knew that Xiao Hua would do what he said, so she could only stomp her feet and point at Xiao Hua's nose, saying, "You wronged me and eldest senior brother for doting on you." Xiao Hua felt wronged. "You can ask the sect master about this matter. Why do you have to make things difficult for me?" "Of course Master will tell you, I just want to see if you are of the same mind as us," Zhang Qingxiao said, and also flew back to the reception hall. Who knew? The matter was not what Zhang Qingxiao thought, and it was also out of Xiao Hua's expectations. When the three people of 100 Herb Hall left, Xiao Yuehong just waved his sleeve and said, "The guests have left, you all go to the Tranquil Heart Cave to reflect." He didn't even say a word. Whether it was Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, or Xiao Xinrui, they were all surprised, but what could they say? Two drooped their heads, one rolled his eyes, and all returned to the lone staff peak. What about Xiao Hua? The three official disciples didn't ask. He knew the inside story, let alone say anything. This was because he had made a new discovery. While Xiao Hua was on his way back to Xihua Peak from the guest hall, he unconsciously looked towards the space. The various spirit grasses that were already half dead a few days ago were now all proud and arrogant. It was as if they had just been watered with spirit energy. "I understand." In an instant, Xiao Hua, who was in mid-air, slapped his forehead. The spiritual herbs planted by Shang Huaming, of course, could be planted with puppets, but after planting, the matter of watering them with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was not something puppets could do. And Xiao Hua, after cultivating Shang Huaming's cultivation method and entering the first level of qi refining, was able to use the corresponding incantation to pour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the medicinal field. He began to use puppets to plant spiritual herbs in the space, but there was no way to use the incantation to send the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the space behind his head to water the spiritual herbs. Of course, those spiritual herbs would be half dead. Don't tell me, the light of this cube is actually the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Xiao Hua inconceivably stared at the cube that was still slowly rotating above the space. He didn't know what kind of material the cube was made of. Xiao Hua could perceive everything in the space, but he couldn't perceive this cube. It was as if this cube didn't exist there. but that rotation and that light reminded Xiao Hua that this thing really did exist. Moreover, it also turned Xiao Hua's delusion of planting spiritual herbs in the space of his mind into reality. Returning to Xihua Peak, Xiao Hua looked at the spiritual herbs in the medicinal field in high spirits, and then looked at the spiritual herbs in the space. He suddenly thought of something. The spiritual herbs in the medicinal field were watered with spiritual energy every day, and in the space, that strange cube was emitting light all the time. Didn't that mean that it was watering spiritual energy all the time? In an instant, Xiao Hua's spirit was greatly uplifted, but then he was suspicious again. This cube is shining all the time, then there will be a time when there is no light. At that time, won't I be unable to plant spiritual herbs? Can I not let it shine? Can I let it shine when I want it to? Unfortunately, this idea was nothing more than a fantasy. Xiao Hua couldn't perceive this cube at all, so how could he control it? Perhaps I can slowly search for it in the future? As long as it's in my space, there will always be a way. Xiao Hua said to himself with a smile. Then, Xiao Hua tidied up the medicinal field, sat cross-legged in his small room, and began to cultivate with Shang Hua Ming's secret cultivation method in his meridians. Just as Xiao Hua closed his eyes to cultivate, an inconceivable thing happened. Just as Xiao Hua closed his eyes to cultivate in his mind, the slowly rotating cube suddenly stopped, and a magnificent brilliance flashed. The entire cube slowly trembled, expanding and contracting, like a beating heart. Along with the trembling of the cube, an extremely mysterious fluctuation gradually expanded outwards, enveloping the entire space, and then enveloping Xiao Hua's mind. Little by little, it enveloped Xiao Hua's entire body, as if his entire body had become that cube, faintly trembling along with the fluctuation. Then, beyond Yellow Flower Ridge, above the boundless horizon, a strange starlight suddenly appeared, covering Xiao Hua's entire body. That starlight was different from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It couldn't be seen with the naked eye, and it couldn't be detected by divine sense. On the surface, Xiao Hua looked the same as usual, only sitting cross-legged with his palms facing the sky, but his entire body had been tightly wrapped by the starlight, turning into a cocoon. Chapter 12:35. Inside the cocoon of light, Xiao Hua's body was shrouded in strange starlight. That starlight seeped into his skin, into his meridians, bones, and flesh. Gradually, it changed everything in his body. This was still not the most important thing. In the space of Xiao Hua's mind, even more and denser strange starlight was projected into the space along with the fluctuations of the glowing cube. Not only did it tightly wrap around the cube, but the entire space was also filled with starlight. Although the cube was still emitting rays of light, at the same time, it was like a black hole, absorbing all the strange starlight in its surroundings without leaving a trace behind. However, that strange starlight seemed to have transcended space, transcended time. It was boundless and unceasing as it was projected over. The cube was simply unable to absorb all of it. Just at this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly opened his eyes. He looked all around in a daze and said to himself, "It seems, it's a bit too quiet. It's different from usual." Just as Xiao Hua opened his eyes, the cube rotated again. All the projected starlight also stopped abruptly, as if nothing had happened at all. When Xiao Hua excitedly looked at the thriving spiritual plants in the space and closed his eyes to cultivate again, the cube stopped again. The fluctuations appeared again and the strange starlight was projected over again. The next morning, without waiting for Xiao Hua to open his eyes, he was already impatiently checking the space in his mind. He had already made sufficient preparations, but he was still shocked by the growth of the spiritual plants in the space. He foolishly couldn't say a word. After a long while, Xiao Hua slapped his thigh with all his strength. Then, the corners of his mouth opened. It was unknown whether it was from pain or joy. Immediately after, Xiao Hua flipped over and stood up. He laughed for a long time and his entire body soared into the air. He somersaulted 3 or 4 times in the air before landing on the ground. "Ha ha, I'm rich, I'm rich." Xiaohua laughed somewhat foolishly. In just one night, these spiritual plants actually grew as if they had grown for a year. In total, I've only grown spiritual plants for 3 years on this Xihua Peak. If I calculate like this, the day after tomorrow, the spiritual plants in my space will grow even more than the spiritual plants in my medicine field. When Xiaohua thought of this, he suddenly seemed to have realized something. His entire body became motionless, and he stood there in a daze. After the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, he muttered, "My God, it seems, it's not that simple. Didn't the sect leader say it a few days ago? What Ling Longgrass, doesn't it need 300 years to be used? What 100 herbs gate, they actually dare to have ideas about senior sister. Wait until I grow the Ling Longgrass and give it to the sect leader. Our Shanghuaming will also be able to refine foundation building pills. I'll refine dozens of pills. My 2 senior brothers and senior sister will each have 10 pills and eat them like fruits every day. The sect leader definitely won't have to worry about them building their foundation, and he definitely won't marry senior sister off. And I just don't know. Will it be better for eldest senior brother and senior sister to be together? Or will it be better for second senior brother and senior sister to be together? Ahem, am I thinking too much? Whose senior sister will be together with even? The sect leader probably doesn't know. Why should I think about this? Xiaohua laughed mischievously, as if he could see Shanghuaming's beautiful future. It's still early for the Ling Longgrass to mature. Let's wait until this time next year, then we'll talk about it. Right now, the most important thing is that absorption fruit. I've been in Shanghuaming for 3 years, and I've only eaten 1 Peiyuan pill. The sect leader hesitated for a long time, and only took it out because he wanted me to break through to the second layer of qi refining. Presumably, senior brother and senior sister also didn't take too much. If we wait until they come out of the Tranquil Heart Cave and see so many Peiyuan pill, wouldn't they go crazy with joy? Xiaohua thought happily, but then he frowned. That's right, why haven't the seeds of the Ling Longgrass sprouted yet? They can be considered to have grown for a year, right? Could it be that it's really like what the sect leader said, that the Ling Longgrass can't be grown from seeds? Forget it, since there's nothing to do, I'd better go and ask. The Ling Longgrass that grows in the space for a day is equivalent to a year in the outside world. It can't be delayed. As Xiaohua thought, he directly flew to Minci Peak. Xiao Yuehong, who was gathering vitality and absorbing qi at the peak of Minci Peak, heard Xiaohua's question and said with a smile, "You silly child, a few days ago, I was just angry and casually scolded your eldest senior brother. You've also stayed in the medicinal garden for 3 years. What kind of spiritual herbs aren't grown from seeds? And even if some spiritual herbs were transplanted from other places, in the end, they're still grown from seeds. Then the seeds of the Ling Longgrass that eldest senior brother bought. Don't they also have a purpose? Why did you deny it?" Xiaohua asked curiously. "Your eldest senior brother only wanted to use the seeds of the Ling Longgrass to make up for their mistakes. Master let them go to the Tranquil Heart Cave to reflect on their mistakes and let them focus on their cultivation. How could I let them come out so easily? Of course I had to say that. Moreover, Master's words aren't without reason. Why? The reason is very simple. Because the seeds of the Ling Longgrass, from the moment they are planted, they need to be watered with heaven and earth spiritual energy once a day. They need to be watered for 100 years before they can grow. During these 100 years, they must not be watered with heaven and earth spiritual energy. Otherwise, they definitely won't be able to germinate. So difficult. Xiaohua was flabbergasted. Isn't that so? Isn't the foundation establishment pill very precious in our cultivation world? Xiao Yuehong smiled and said, however, after the Ling Longgrass germinates and grows out, it'll be easy to handle. You don't need to water it with heaven and earth spiritual energy every day. You just need to take care of it like a normal spiritual herb. After another 200 years of care, it can be refined into a foundation establishment pill. Oh, Sect Master, I understand. So you're saying that after it germinates, the Ling long grass can also be transplanted. If others want to plant it, they can directly use the seedlings of the Ling long grass. There's no need to painstakingly take care of the seeds of the Ling long grass for 100 years. Xiao Yuehong clapped his hands and smiled. That's right. So in the Dawn Rain continent, other than those like the 100 Herbs sect who specialize in cultivating spiritual herbs, everyone else transplants the Ling long grass. So, Master said, the Ling long grass isn't grown from seeds. It's also very reasonable. Disciple understands. Xiao Hua bowed and said, why are you suddenly asking about this? Xiao Yuehong smiled thoughtfully and said, could it be that your second senior brother still hasn't given up on his evil intentions? Does he still want to grow out sooner? Oh no. Xiao Hua repeatedly waved his hand and anxiously spat out. Disciple saw that senior brother and sister were punished. Disciple thought that the seeds of the Ling long grass were also due to their contribution. Disciple wanted to ask about it carefully and discuss it with sect master. Hehe, Xiao Hua, I also know what you're thinking. I'm very gratified that you have such a good relationship with your senior brother and sister. However, you should know, cultivation is hard work. I, Shang Huaming, only have you 4 disciples, so I don't supervise much. If I can take this opportunity to teach them a little lesson and let their cultivation progress, my painstaking efforts won't be in vain. Disciple understands. I reckon senior brother and sister also understand. Sect Master Emoshinyo. Xiao Hua smiled and said, AI, it's impossible not to worry. Didn't you see? Xiao Yuehong thought for a moment and then hesitated. He waved his hand and said, you also do your best to cultivate. The sooner you step into the 3rd layer of qi refining, the sooner Master can accept you as Shang Huaming's disciple. Xiao Hua's face revealed a bitter smile, but then he thought of something and became confident again. He smiled and said, I know, Sect Master, I will definitely work hard. Xiao Yuehong didn't know why Xiao Hua suddenly had confidence, but he was also very gratified. He patted his shoulder and said, then, why don't you hurry up and cultivate? Yes, Sect Master. Xiao Hua bowed and turned to leave. He then asked, that's right, Sect Master, let me ask you, in our Yellow Flower Ridge, did you find the 300-year-old Ling longgrass? Xiao Yuehong was surprised and asked curiously, why are you asking this? Strange. Xiao Hua, what's wrong with you today? Why do you keep talking about Ling longgrass? When Xiao Hua heard this, his expression unconsciously stiffened and he secretly complained in his heart, the more you talk, the more mistakes you will make. If I had known earlier, I would have asked tomorrow. However, before Xiao Hua could think of a countermeasure, Xiao Yuehong explained for him, okay, you don't have to worry about yesterday's matter. Your head is full of foundation-building pills and Ling longgrass for no reason. In fact, what your senior martial brother and senior martial sister lack the most right now is the Peiyuan pill. They have to raise their cultivation to the peak stage of the aura refining realm first, then they can consider the matter of building their foundation. Okay, for the next few days, you should guard Cherishing Flower Peak properly. If you have nothing to do, you can also go to other places to take a look. I'll go to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge to search. Maybe I'll really be able to find some old absorbing fruits. It seemed that Xiao Yuehong also had a similar plan. Seeing that Xiao Yuehong also wanted to go to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge to search for Ling longgrass, Xiao Hua was delighted. He cupped his hands and said, Disciple congratulates Sect Master for achieving victory and immediate success. Xiao Yuehong laughed out loud. I'm not going to look for people to fight. Where did this achieving victory come from? However, he immediately frowned and muttered, Your words have reminded Master. I don't know if the place where I found Ling longgrass still has it. If that thing is still there, Master will really have to think of another way. Xiao Hua didn't know what Xiao Yuehong was talking about, but he also didn't care. He only carefully probed. Say, if Disciple looks around our Min Chi Peak, will I be able to find good spiritual herbs? Around Min Chi Peak? Xiao Yuehong shook his head. I'm afraid not. Our Shang Huaming's disciples have already searched the surroundings of Min Chi Peak who knows how many times. How could there be any old spiritual herbs? And disciple understands. Disciple just wants to look around again. Xiao Hua smiled apologetically. If you have nothing to do, then go look around. Maybe you'll have good luck? Xiao Yuehong obviously didn't believe it. Chapter 12:36. Yellow Flower Ridge covered a large area. Shanghuaming could only occupy a few mountain peaks to the left of Minushi Peak, and their sect-protecting formation could only cover these areas. The deep area Xiao Yuehong was talking about was northeast of Yellow Flower Ridge. It was an extremely deep mountain forest, shrouded in fog all day long. The mountains were very high, the water was very deep, and the forest was very dense. Not to mention ordinary people, even cultivators rarely saw it. Others might not know, but Xiao Yuehong knew that it was a taboo area of Shanghuaming's ancestors. The ancient records in the sect clearly stated that if one did not have a cultivation of the golden core stage, one should not go deep. Based on Xiao Yuehong's lazy personality, he most likely would not go deep in this life. But the fact that 100 Herbs Gate had come to propose marriage was a huge blow to him. Although this was a win-win situation, and it seemed that his daughter was somewhat interested in Jiang Fan, it was probably the wisest choice for him to nod and agree. But when he saw Jiang Jiantong of the 100 Herbs Gate take out the 2 foundation establishment pills so easily, and was so confident that he had no room to refuse, he felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. What is the 100 Herbs Gate? It's just a small sect that specializes in planting herbs. The cultivation method in the sect can only be practiced to the late stage of foundation establishment. There are no records of how to control, fuse, and condense the core. How can they compare to my Shanghuaming? Standing on the boat-shaped magic weapon, Xiao Yuehong flew into the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. He was still angry and thought to himself, how can I not know what this Jiang Jiantong is planning? He just wants my Shanghuaming's golden core cultivation method. He wants to trick my little Rue with 2 foundation establishment pills. How can it be so easy? Alas, but it seems that little Rue has a good impression of Jiang Fan. What's wrong with big brother and second brother? Their hearts have been eaten by dogs. They can't even compare to that dog-like Jiang Fan. I'd like to see what kind of betrothal gift your 100 Herbs Gate can take out if my 2 disciples are in the foundation establishment stage. The more Xiao Yuehong thought about it, the angrier he became. He snorted and the boat sped up. With a whoosh, it flew into the distance. Cultivators had a long lifespan, and as their cultivation deepened, their lifespan would increase. A normal qi refinement cultivator could live up to 100 years old. When they entered the foundation establishment stage, their lifespan could reach 200 years old. When they entered the Aurus core stage, their lifespan could reach 300 years old. When they reached the nascent soul stage, their lifespan could reach a terrifying 500 years old. Although Xiao Yuehong's hair was white and he looked like he was in his 50s or 60s in the secular world, he was actually 90 years old. To be able to cultivate to the middle stage of foundation establishment in less than 100 years of age, Xiao Yuehong could be considered an extremely talented person. Cultivators had a long lifespan, and their main goal was to pursue longevity and realms. Unless there was someone who was deeply in love, or someone who cultivated both yin and yang, very few cultivators would spend extra energy on love. Even if it was for the sake of their descendants, they would still reproduce under the circumstances where the immortal Tao was indefinite. Xiao Yuehong also met Xiao Xinrue's mother when he was in his 60s, fell in love, and had Xiao Xinrue. Therefore, Xiao Xinrue was only 26 years old at this time. In Xiao Yuehong's eyes, it was really too early to talk about love, so he was not very anxious. Moreover, he had always been following the idea of keeping the goodies within the family, and had his eyes on Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao. The sudden appearance of Jiang Fan really made him feel uncomfortable. Xiao Hua respectfully sent Xiao Yuehong out of Minushi Peak and went to Lone Staff Peak himself. However, he only looked at Gong Mingwei and the others and asked what was going on. He did not explain why Xiao Yuehong went out. But when they saw Xiao Hua, not only Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao had a trace of anger on their faces, but even Xiao Xinrui had a trace of coldness. They all wanted to know the purpose of Jiang Jiantong's visit, but they also knew that Xiao Hua was the most principled. If Xiao Yuehong told them not to say anything, then no matter what method they used or what temptation they offered, they could not get half a word from Xiao Hua's mouth. Therefore, they could only return the look on their faces and did not ask. Xiao Hua did not care. Seeing that the three people ignored him, he stood at the entrance of the cave for a long time, cupped his hands, and left with a smile. How could he not be happy in his heart? The space in his mind was really as he thought. All the spiritual herbs were growing healthily. A day in the space was equivalent to a year in the outside world. What he needed to do now was to wait for enough time and a suitable reason to take out the spiritual herbs of enough age from the space. Presumably, with these vitality-assimilating fruits and exquisite grass, Xiao Yuehong would be able to refine enough Peiyuan pill and foundation establishment pill. His dream of Xiao Yuehong saving him and Shang Huaming's cultivation would not be in vain. Xiao Hua returned to the medicine garden on Shihua Peak and finished his daily tasks. Seeing that there was nothing to do, he stroked his left ear and a flight talisman appeared in his hand. This flight talisman was a yellow talisman. As the name implied, it was a talisman made of yellow paper. There were 3 types of talismans in the cultivation world of the Xiaoyu continent. The lowest level was the yellow talisman, which was made of yellow paper made of special materials and then drawn with special paint and a special writing brush. As long as the cultivator of this yellow talisman was at the qi refining stage, the talisman would be activated when magic power was injected into the yellow talisman. If it was a flight talisman, then it could be attached to the cultivator's body to display the flight technique. If it was a fireball talisman, then it could release a fireball on the ground or in the air. As for the power of the yellow talisman, not only did it depend on the cultivator of the talisman, it also depended on the amount of magic power of the user. If one looked at the power of the yellow talisman, then it could be divided into high, medium, and low-grade yellow talismans. One grade higher than the yellow talisman was the spirit talisman. This spirit talisman was made from the fur of spirit beasts, and the talisman on the fur was drawn with the blood of spirit beasts. Needless to say, the fur of spirit beasts naturally had certain attributes, and the blood of spirit beasts contained the magical power of spirit beasts. When these two complemented each other, the might of a spirit talisman would be more than 1 level stronger than a yellow talisman. The spirit talisman was divided into high, medium, and low grades. There was also the supreme grade spirit talisman. However, although there were many spirit beasts on the Xiaoyu continent, they were all extremely difficult to catch. Therefore, there were very few spirit talismans that could be seen. Even in the time exchange market, there were only a few low-grade spirit talismans. Medium-grade spirit talismans were hard to come by, let alone supreme-grade spirit talismans. Those were only occasionally heard of in some large sects. The next grade higher than the spirit talisman was the jade talisman. As the name implied, this jade talisman was a talisman made from jade stone. Of course, this jade stone was not ordinary jade stone, but the essence of jade stone, commonly known as jade marrow. And what was used to inscribe the talisman in the jade marrow was also not the blood essence of spirit beasts, nor was it a special pigment, but the real heaven and earth spiritual energy. Speaking of yellow talismans, spirit talismans, and jade talismans, they were all used by cultivators to form hand seals and use the heaven and earth spiritual energy to assist. Usually, when cultivators used hand seals, not only did they have to expend their own spiritual energy, they also had to expend time when forming hand seals. If it was a crucial moment in a fight, a little bit of spiritual energy, or a moment of time in the latter, could be the key to victory or defeat. Therefore, cultivators tried their best to save time and spiritual energy, and these few types of talismans were the methods they came up with. Regardless of whether it was yellow talismans or spirit talismans, they all used yellow paper and spirit beasts' fur as carriers. In advance, they used special pigment and spirit beasts' blood essence to draw the talisman, using the pigment and spirit beasts' blood essence to retain the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the talisman. Because of the problem with yellow paper itself, even if Spirit Beast's blood essence were used to draw the talisman on it, that yellow paper would not be able to contain the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the Spirit Beast's blood essence. Furthermore, the heaven and earth spiritual energy contained in the special pigment could not possibly be more than the Spirit Beast's blood essence. Therefore, this caused the Spirit Talisman to be much more powerful than the yellow talisman. However, when creating the Jade Talisman, the heaven and earth spiritual energy was directly injected into the Jade essence by forming hand seals. When the Jade Talisman was activated, the effect was exactly the same as when the hand seals were formed. Furthermore, there was another wonderful thing. The Jade essence was the best at communicating with the heaven and earth spiritual energy. A good quality Jade essence could even double the effect of the hand seals and mobilize more heaven and earth spiritual energy. Its power was even greater than if the hand seals were formed directly. Of course, the most exciting thing was not this. Yellow talismans and spirit talismans, due to the nature of their materials, could not contain more heaven and earth spiritual energy. Generally speaking, the talismans of nascent soul stage cultivators were the limit of what a spirit talisman could withstand. The so-called supreme-grade spirit talismans were made by nascent soul stage cultivators. Of course, nascent soul stage cultivators nurtured nascent souls within their bodies and were able to communicate with the heaven and earth. Their ability to use the heaven and earth spiritual energy was unimaginable to golden core stage cultivators. Therefore, unless it was a special need, they would rarely use spirit talismans and would not create any spirit talismans. This was also the reason why supreme-grade spirit talismans were so rare. However, Jade talismans were not restricted by these restrictions. The amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that a Jade essence could withstand was far greater than that of a Spirit Beast's fur. In fact, Jade essence could be transformed into various shapes in the hands of a cultivator and become one with the heaven and earth spiritual energy. How could a spirit talisman compare to the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy that a Jade talisman could use? The classification of Jade talismans was even simpler because they were extremely rare. Furthermore, depending on the cultivation level of the person who made the Jade Talisman, the difference in the power of the Jade Talisman was too great. Therefore, there were only two types of Jade Talismans. One was ordinary Jade Talismans and the other was Heavenly Jade. What was Heavenly Jade? It was a Jade Talisman that could directly communicate with the heaven and earth spiritual energy. Ordinary Jade talismans were differentiated based on the amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy it contained and the talisman's incantation. Heavenly Jade, on the other hand, only contained the incantation and no heaven and earth spiritual energy. In other words, this Heavenly Jade was made by a powerful cultivator. This Jade talisman did not contain the slightest bit of heaven and earth spiritual energy. It only contained an extremely high-level incantation. The person who used the Heavenly Jade only needed to send his or her spiritual energy into the Heavenly Jade. The incantation carved on the Heavenly Jade would automatically activate and absorb the heaven and earth spiritual energy from the surroundings to activate the high-level incantation in the Jade Talisman. It would allow a person with a low cultivation level to activate the high-level incantation that they were unable to use. Of course, spirit talismans were already very rare, let alone Jade talismans. They were all things that only existed in legends. However, most cultivators had only heard of them and had never seen them with their own eyes. They did not even know what a Jade talisman looked like. Chapter 1237. Shanghuaming is an insignificant small sect in the Xiaoyu continent. Xiao Yuehong is also not good at making yellow talismans. The yellow talismans used by Shanghuaming were all obtained by Xiao Xinrui and the others from the marketplace. What kind of high-grade goods could they be? However, it is also strange. Although Xiaohua's realm is much lower than Gong Mingwei and the others, and his magic power is even lower, the effect of his flying talisman is a bit stronger than Gong Mingwei and the others. This low-grade flying talisman allows him to use the effect of a high-grade flying talisman. This makes Xiao Yuehong very puzzled. The other three are even more flabbergasted. In the end, only Zhang Qingxiao shrugs her shoulders, her eyes filled with playfulness as she concludes, Xiaohua is a genius at escaping. Xiaohua takes out the flying talisman. Just as he is about to use his magic power to activate it, he suddenly stops. His left hand brushes his ear, and he takes out a coiling snake-shaped thing. What the hell is this thing? I've been looking at it for 3 years. Why haven't I seen any clues? Xiaohua stares at this fist-sized thing, facing the sunlight as he observes it from left to right. This is an incomplete thing. It looks like the middle section of a coiling snake. The snake's head is not visible, and the snake's tail is also not visible. Xiaohua discovered it at the same time when he woke up and discovered the space in his mind. At that time, his space was empty, and only this strange thing was placed inside. In these 3 years, he doesn't know how many times he has looked at it, and he doesn't know how many methods he has used, but he still can't discover its mystery. But if you say this is an extremely ordinary thing, Xiaohua won't believe it even if he is beaten to death. Take now as an example. Although Xiaohua observes it against the sunlight, there should be a shadow of this thing on Xiaohua's face. But strangely, there is no shadow on Xiaohua's face. If that thing is transparent, Xiaohua should be able to see the sunlight directly. But Xiaohua can't see through it. He can only see the thin scales on its body. Also, if this thing is in the shape of a snake at the place where the tail is missing, there is a small protrusion, as if there is another leg at the abdomen. Sometimes, Xiaohua even thinks that this thing might not be a snake, it might be a dragon. Of course, this is also Xiaohua's guess. He used 3 years but didn't find any clues at all. After looking at it for a moment, Xiaohua stored the incomplete snake into his space. He then used a flight talisman and flew straight towards the cold pond at the foot of Cherishing Flower Peak. The cold pond of Cherishing Flower Peak was at the foot of the mountain and was about the same size as the pond of Lone Staff Peak. However, before Xiaohua could fly to the edge of the pond, a dense cold chi was emitted from the pond. Looking from afar, there seemed to be a white mist above the pond. However, this white mist was different from the white mist of Lone Staff Peak. This white mist should be the water vapor above the cold pond that was frozen by the cold chi and formed into fine ice shards that fell down. Xiaohua took a deep breath. The cold air that could cause frostbite to ordinary people, when Xiaohua breathed it in, actually gave him a refreshing feeling. Xiaohua also didn't understand why he wasn't afraid of this cold air. He remembered that when he fell into this cold pond and was found by Xiao Yuehong was extremely worried, afraid that his body would be frozen to death. But looking at it, there wasn't much of a problem. Only then did he sigh endlessly, exclaiming that Xiaohua was lucky. Arriving at the side of the cold pond, Xiaohua looked around. The pond water in the cold pond was dark green. Although it was extremely cold, the pond water didn't show any signs of freezing. In the surroundings of the cold pond, there were only shiny pebbles and hard soil. There wasn't even a single blade of grass. Xiaohua raised his hand and clapped twice in the air. His eyes looked towards the center of the pond water. In a short moment, the pond water slightly churned and Little White drilled out of the pond water. Little White raised its head and its slender body swam extremely fast in the pond water. When it reached the edge of the pond, it curled up its snake body and nimbly shot onto Xiaohua's arm. Little White, how about coming with me for a stroll around today? Xiaohua extended his finger and stroked Little White's cool and smooth snake head. He said with a smile. It was unknown whether Little White understood or not. It raised its snake head and stretched its snake tongue. Okay, I'll take it that you agree. Xiaohua said again. However, today, I can't take you out for nothing. You have to help me find a place that I usually don't pay attention to, or a place that Sect Head and the others have never been to. The place doesn't need to be too big, this big is good. As he said this, Xiaohua extended his hand and gestured to a place with a radius of a few feet. That's right, assimilating fruit grows day by day in the space. It's very easy to take it out, but how can I explain the origin of the assimilating fruit to Xiao Yuehong? In these 3 years, Xiaohua had also walked all around Xihua Peak, but he didn't see any rare spiritual plants. Before Xiao Yuehong left, he only told him to take a look at the left side. If there wasn't a relatively hidden place, then it really couldn't be justified. Little White seemed to understand Xiaohua's words and turned its head to look to the left. Xiaohua was overjoyed. His figure flew straight towards the direction Little White's head was pointing at. After a short moment, he arrived at a barren mountain about half a li away from Lone Staff Peak. That barren mountain wasn't very high, only a few dozen feet. Standing on top of the mountain, Xiaohua looked around and asked curiously, "Is there a hidden place here?" Hearing this, Little White jumped down from Xiaohua's arm with a whoosh and landed on the ground. Its figure moved and swam towards the place where the barren mountain was connected to the nearby peak. Seeing this, Xiaohua didn't say anything and quickly followed. When Little White swam to a place, its figure flashed and its white snake body disappeared. "Little White!" Xiaohua stared blankly and shouted. A weak echo came from the underbrush in front of him. It seemed empty in front of him, as if there was some kind of cave. Could it be that there's a cave here that's covered by grass? Xiaohua quickly walked a few steps and pushed aside the extremely lush weeds. Sure enough, there was a low cave that was about half a person's height in front of him. From inside the cave, there was a slight sound. It should be the sound of Little White swimming inside. Seeing this, Xiaohua was overjoyed. He stroked his hand and took out another thing from the space. It was the bright flower stone that was commonly used in the cultivation world of Xiaoyu continent. Xiaohua crouched down and stuck his head inside. The bright flower stone in his hand illuminated the cave. This was an ordinary cave. It didn't look strange. However, the cave was very deep and it was dark inside. He couldn't see clearly what was inside. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then curled up his body, held the Minghua stone in front of him, and flew along the low cave. He believed that if there was any danger in this cave, Little White would have already warned him, and seeing how Little White was so familiar with this place, did he come here often? The deeper he went into the cave, the more spacious it became. In the end, Xiaohua could already stand up. At the end of the cave, there was an even bigger cave. It seemed to be in the mountain peak beside the barren mountain. This cave was a bit damp. However, Xiaohua held the bright flower stone and looked for a long time. He didn't find anything good in this cave. There wasn't even a stalk of ancient spirit grass. It seemed that other than the mountain rocks, there was only moss. What is this place? Xiaohua walked to the innermost part of the cave and saw Little White swimming in a tranquil small pond. This pond was extremely small. It was only 1 zhang in radius. Well, it wasn't accurate to say that it was a pond. It should be said that it was a place where the water flowed in a roundabout way. From the top of this pond, there was something that quietly flowed in. It circled around the pond and then quietly flowed out from the other side of the pond. The entire process was silent. Hey, this water isn't flowing out from Shihua Peak, right? Xiaohua crouched down and touched the bone-chilling water in the pond. Then, he looked at the stone wall above the pond that was half a person's height and said with a smile, 3 years ago, if I didn't meet you, would I have directly rushed into this cave from Shihua Peak's cold pond? Little White swam freely in the pond. Sometimes it stuck its head out and sometimes it dived into the water. It didn't pay any attention to Xiaohua. This place is also not bad. Xiaohua searched for a while. He wasn't disappointed because he didn't find any spirit herbs. He knew that if there were any spirit herbs here, Little White would have already led him here. After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua took out the puppet from his mind and ordered it to casually flatten the ground. This would be the place where he would find the assimilation fruit and the exquisite grass in several dozen days or several hundred days. Little White at the side looked at him with a puzzled expression. After Xiaohua was done, it brought Xiaohua to look for a few more places. Sure enough, they were all extremely hidden places. If one wasn't curled up at the entrance, they had to crawl in. Normally, Xiaohua wouldn't be able to find them. Xiaohua had done something to these places. They all looked as if they had picked spirit herbs. As for whether or not spirit herbs could grow in these places, it wasn't something that Xiaohua could consider. Xiaohua had already decided that he would only deliver the absorbing fruit to Xiao Yuehong and then lead him here. In the future, he would just be a tight-lipped gourd. After making his preparations, Xiao Hua focused on cultivating and taking care of the medicinal garden. Although Xiao Hua had always been stuck at the first layer of the aura refining realm, he had always been diligently cultivating these past 3 years. This was because he felt that perhaps things weren't as bad as Xiao Yuehong thought. After all, his transcendence energy had always been growing along with his cultivation. It wasn't like what Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao said, that he had encountered a bottleneck between the first layer and the second layer of the aura refining realm. If it was that kind of bottleneck, Xiao Hua's magic power should be stagnant. Xiao Hua had also asked Gong Mingwei before. They were taken into Shanghuaming by Xiao Yuehong when they were around 6 years old. It took them half a year to enter the sect and another half a year to reach the first layer of qi refining. In 3 years, Gong Mingwei and the others had already stepped into the third layer of qi refining. Of course, the further they went, the harder it was to cultivate. According to Gong Mingwei, Shanghuaming's cultivation method was divided into 12 layers of qi refining. According to the realm, it was divided into the early stage, the middle stage, and the late stage. The first to fourth layers of qi refining were the early stage, the fifth to eighth layers were the middle stage, and after the ninth layer was the late stage. Apart from the difficulty of entering the early stage of qi refining, which depended on each person's cultivation aptitude, the early stage of qi refining was relatively easy. Basically, they could advance by 1 layer every year. The middle stage of qi refining began to become more difficult. Even with Gong Mingwei's aptitude and cultivation, it took him 8 years to cross the middle stage of qi refining. The late stage of qi refining not only required aptitude, but also the support of medicinal pills and other things. Therefore, Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xianrui used nearly 10 years to cultivate to the 10th layer of qi refining. Chapter 12:38. Shanghuaming's 3 disciples were not much slower than others in the early and middle stages of the qi refining realm, and even surpassed others in some areas. However, in the middle and late stages of the qi refining realm, when the effects of the medicinal pills became apparent, they lagged behind others. Xiao Yuehong was also helpless in this situation. Shanghuaming's strength was barely satisfactory, and his selection of disciples was extremely strict. In addition, Xiao Yuehong was lazy and didn't like to expand his influence. He only relied on refining some low-level medicinal pills to survive, so he was stretched thin when it came to providing medicinal pills to his disciples. This time, if 100 Herbs Gate hadn't taken out the Foundation Establishment pill to stimulate him, Xiao Yuehong might not have been in such a hurry to go to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge to look for ripe and usable absorption fruits. He might even have been lying on a boat-shaped artifact and basking in the sun every day. Knowing Xiao Yuehong's temperament, Xiao Hua also knew that Xiao Yuehong might not get to the bottom of the matter when he saw the absorption fruits. He would go to the place where the absorption fruits were picked to investigate with his own eyes, so he only concealed a few places. Just as Xiao Hua was ready to wait for Xiao Yuehong to return, Xiao Yuehong had disappeared again. Previously, Xiao Hua was afraid that Xiao Yuehong would come back quickly. The absorption fruits in the space behind his head were not ripe, so he couldn't take them out. Xiao Hua silently told Xiao Yuehong to come back later, but after waiting for a period of time, about 20 days, Xiao Yuehong really didn't come back in time as Xiao Hua expected. Xiao Hua was a little uneasy. After all, in the 3 years that Xiao Hua had been with Shanghuaming, Xiao Yuehong had almost never left Minzu Peak. It was even more impossible for him to disappear for 20 days. Moreover, in these 20 days, not a single messaging talisman flew back. On this day, just as Xiao Hua was hesitating whether to tell Gong Mingwei that Xiao Yuehong hadn't returned for a long time, he felt that Shanghuaming's sect protection array had some changes. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He flew to the place where he had received Jiang Jiantong from 100 Herbs Gate. He threw out a yellow talisman, and a scarlet-red messaging talisman flew past. It opened a small crack in the formation and landed in Xiao Hua's hand. Xiao Hua knew that this messaging talisman was for Xiao Yuehong, so he didn't dare to open it without permission. He could only take the messaging talisman and send it to Minzu Peak. Looking at the flashing red talisman, Xiaohua pinched his chin and thought for a long time before he made up his mind and went to the pure heart cave of solitary Staff Peak. What, master, has already been in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge for more than 20 days? Gong Mingwei was shocked when he heard this. You? Why didn't you say so earlier? Zhang Qingshao fiercely glared at Xiaohua and scolded. Second senior brother, you can't blame me for this. The sect leader didn't allow me to tell you because he was afraid that it would affect your cultivation. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. But this little brother didn't know if there was any problem with the sect leader being gone for so long. After thinking it over, I came up to report. And Xiaohua, don't mind it too much. Second senior brother is just a little anxious. Xiao Xianrui panicked at first, but she calmed down after a while. She first told Xiaohua and then said to Gong Mingwei, eldest senior brother, don't worry. I'm afraid that father went to that place to look for the absorbing fruit again. Sigh, junior sister, that's why I feel that it's inappropriate when I think about it. Last time, Master said that he was lucky enough to pick enough absorption fruits. He also said that he wouldn't risk his life so easily. Gong Mingwei sighed and said, but this time he went to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. If he didn't go there, where else could he go? It seems that last time, Master didn't return for 20 days. Counting with my fingers, it's about time. Zhang Qingshao lowered her head and thought for a moment before speaking. Master didn't send a message back? Gong Mingwei raised his head and asked Xiaohua. No, Xiaohua shook his head and replied, but before he could say anything about the communication talisman, they heard a rumbling sound from outside the mountain. What's that sound? Xiaohua's 5 senses were very sensitive, so it was very easy for him to hear it. What sound? Gong Mingwei was stunned. When he listened carefully, an even louder sound was heard. Oh, not good. Someone's attacking our sect protecting formation. Xiao Xianrui's mind was very sharp. As soon as she heard the sound, she realized. Quick, let's go take a look. Zhang Qingshao didn't say anything else and ran out of the cave. Second brother, without master's orders, how can we leave the tranquil cave? Gong Mingwei said anxiously. When Xiao Xianrui heard this, she put down her raised leg. They're already at our doorstep. Do we still have to reflect on our mistakes? Zhang Qingshao didn't care about this. After running out of the tranquil cave, she turned around and asked, Junior sister, where's the flying talisman? Please ask eldest senior brother and senior sister to leave quickly. If the sect master asks, just say that I saw someone attacking our sect and asked senior brother and senior sister to leave. Xiaohua was also a little anxious. He had been at Tranquil Cave for 3 years, but he had never seen anyone attack Tranquil Cave. Hee, when is it your turn to bear the responsibility? Although Gong Mingwei was apprehensive about his master's orders, he wasn't a stubborn person. He reached out his hand and took a flying talisman from Xiao Xianrui's hand. He placed it on himself and said as he flew, Xiaohua, when Master left, he gave you the magic tool to control the formation. As Xiaohua spoke, he took out the jade pendant that he had already taken out from his space and handed it over. He said, just now, there was a talisman that was used to transmit messages. I only used a yellow talisman to bring it in. I have yet to use this magic tool. Communication talisman? Who sent it? Gong Mingwei took the magic tool and asked curiously. I don't know either. I only put it on Minci Peak. Xiaohua said honestly. Go get it. Maybe it has something to do with the evil thieves outside. Yes, eldest senior brother. Xiaohua flew back to Minci Peak. By the time he brought the communication talisman back, Gong Mingwei and the other 2 had already arrived at the edge of the sect-protecting formation. In front of the 3 of them was a rather large mirror. In that mirror, they could see the situation outside the white fog of Yellow Flower Ridge. At this moment, there were more than 10 people around 30 years old dressed in navy blue clothes. They held some yellow talismans in their hands and some oddly shaped magic tools. They were constantly throwing fireballs, ice balls, water streams, and other things at Tranquil Cave's sect-protecting formation. From those magic tools, There were also very colorful lights. When those lights hit the formation, there were rumbling sounds. This was what Xiao Hua and the others had heard at Lone Staff Peak. 10,000 Poisons Sect. Xiao Xianrui saw all kinds of strange poisons on the sleeves of the disciples in the mirror and couldn't help but gnash her teeth. Did I, Tranquil Cave, provoke them or provoke them? They actually brought so many disciples to attack me? Behind the 10,000 Poisons Sect disciple who was attacking Shang Huaming, there was also a streak of light in the air. Above the streak of light stood a man and a woman, both in the Foundation establishment stage. The man's skin was dark and his face was ugly. His eyes faintly glowed with a cold light. The woman's clothes were brightly colored, her skin was fair, her figure was plump, and her eyes were full of affection. Seeing that the middle stage Qi refinement stage disciples were not attacking well, the man snorted coldly. Protector Liao, the disciples have been attacking for so long. That Xiao Yuehong of Tranquil Cave should have heard the commotion. Even if he didn't come out to fight, we didn't reinforce this formation? I'm afraid there's no one in Tranquil Cave? You're right, Protector Zhen. If Xiao Yuehong isn't at Yellow Flower Ridge, then it's a great opportunity for us to take down Yellow Flower Ridge. Protector Liao's eyes turned flirtatiously. Her voice was also frivolous. Boy, quickly use all your magic power and take down Tranquil Cave. I have something good for you. Hearing this, the dozen or so disciples of the 10,000 Poisons Sect were invigorated. Yellow talismans, magic weapons, and so on were all used to attack Tranquil Cave's Great Formation. Unfortunately, Tranquil Cave's Great Formation was set up by an Aurus Core stage ancestor. Although the Great Formation shook for a while, it was still too early to say that it was broken. Just relying on them won't work. Seeing this, Protector Zhen smiled. Previously, we were waiting here for Xiao Yuehong to appear. Now that he's not at Yellow Flower Ridge, why don't we make the first move? If we take down Yellow Flower Ridge, the strength of our 10,000 Poisons Sect will increase greatly. We should be able to overcome the next obstacle. Yes, we'll do as you say, Protector Zhen. Protector Liao smiled charmingly. Now, I'll make the first move. If Protector Zhen is willing, how about we work together? Hee, if Protector Zhen doesn't mind, how can I refuse? Protector Zhen also laughed. His laughter was filled with vulgarity. Oh no, they're both at the Foundation establishment stage. If Father doesn't preside over our Great Formation, I'm afraid we're no match for them. Seeing that the two masters outside were about to make a move, Xiao Xianrui was shocked. Zhang Qingxiao was also panicking. She shouted anxiously, "Why isn't Master back yet? Xiao Hua, have you sent a messaging charm to Master?" Right, a messaging charm. Xiao Xianrui slapped her forehead. I don't have a messaging charm. Xiao Hua held the red messaging charm in his hand and smiled bitterly. I'll do it. Xiao Xianrui patted the storage bag on her waist, and a yellow talisman in the shape of a paper crane appeared in her hand. She said a few words on the top of the paper crane's head, and Xiao Xianrui injected her magic power into the paper crane. The paper crane first flew out, circled in the air a few times, then determined a direction, and suddenly flew out, turning into a light blue brilliance and flying towards the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. This messaging charm just arrived? Gong Mingwei pointed at the red brilliance in Xiao Hua's hand and said, Yes, it is. Xiao Hua handed the messaging charm over. No need to look. It's probably a letter of challenge from the 10,000 Poisons Sect. Zhang Qingxiao had a well-thought-out look. The messaging charm just entered the Great Formation and the 10,000 Poisons Sect came. Do you still need to say it? Let's wait and see. As Gong Mingwei spoke, he poured his magic power into his hand and squeezed it. The brilliance of the messaging charm was crushed with a pop sound. A slightly familiar voice was heard. Sect Leader Xiao, have you discussed this matter with your daughter? I'm eagerly waiting for good news. That voice belonged to the 100 Herbs Sect's Jiang Jiantong. Xiao Xianrui was stunned and very puzzled. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao's faces suddenly darkened as they turned to look at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua shouted, Oh no! and was thinking about how to answer when he heard Jiang Jiantong say again. Sect leader Xiao, please don't blame me. I was just casually asking. I didn't have any intention of urging you. The main reason for this message is... Chapter 1239. Jiang Jiantong of the 100 Herbs Gate said, Sect Master Xiao, my 100 Herbs Gate received a report yesterday that the 10,000 Poisons Gate might attack your sect in the near future. Of course, this information is not confirmed. The exact time is still unknown. Therefore, I hope that Sect Master Xiao will pay more attention. If there really is any movement, please send a message to my 100 Herbs Gate. Now that our two sects have formed an alliance, my 100 Herbs Gate naturally has the right to rescue Shang Huaming. It is also my 100 Herbs Gate's duty. We have already formed an alliance with the 100 Herbs Gate? Zhang Qingxiao looked at Xiao Hua in surprise. Xiao Xinrui's face was flushed, and she looked at Xiao Hua without blinking. Eldest senior brother, as long as you know, he didn't say anything. Xiao Hua shrugged and smiled bitterly. Then he realized, this communication talisman must have arrived a long time ago. It's just that I didn't notice and just received it? Yes, it should be. This 10,000 Poisons Gate dares to have ideas about Shang Huaming. Their intentions are worthy of death. Gong Mingwei nodded slightly. He didn't know what to feel. Senior sister, since the 100 Herbs Gate is our alliance, then why don't you hurry up and send a message? Let them come quickly? Xiao Hua didn't like the 100 Herbs Gate, but, at this point, he could only ask for their help. Xiao Xinrui's face was slightly hot. She looked at the two Foundation establishment experts of the 10,000 Poisons Gate and smiled bitterly. 100 Herbs Gate, isn't it thousands of miles away from Shang Huaming? They don't have enough power to send this communication talisman to 100 Herbs Gate. Furthermore, there are Foundation establishment experts outside the formation. The messaging talisman hasn't even flown for a moment before the sect's protective formation is about to be broken by them. What should we do? Xiao Hua panicked and said anxiously. Forget it, let's throw caution to the wind. Eldest senior brother, go out and kill those Qi refining level 6 and 7 brats. Drag a few of them down with us. Zhang Qingxiao said fiercely. Forget it. Gong Mingwei scolded. There are Foundation establishment experts outside. If you and I go out, we are just ants. How can we drag people down with us? Right now, the most important thing is to use the sect protecting Grand Formation to guard the door of Shang Huaming and wait for Master to return. Or perhaps 100 Herbs Gate will receive more detailed information and come to our aid on account of our alliance with Master. Zhang Qingxiao bit her lips. Her eyes were wide open and her fists were clenched. She knew that what Gong Mingwei said was reasonable, but she still muttered a few words and kept her opinion to herself. Eldest senior brother? Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, there was a loud rumbling sound. It was as if the heavens and earth were shaking. Everyone's figures swayed a little. The mirror outside was immediately shattered, and the white fog gradually dissipated. This is bad. Quick, let's inject all our magic power into this magical artifact. Gong Mingwei's expression changed greatly. He let out a loud roar and silently channeled his magic power into the jade pendant in his hand. Xiao Xinrui and Zhang Qingxiao did not dare to be negligent. They both poured their spiritual power into the jade pendant. The jade pendant instantly emitted a dazzling brilliance. When it was a little dazzling, the brilliance divided into 3 rays and shot towards different directions of the array. Rumble! Another loud sound rang out. This time, the sound was indeed earth-shattering, but the movement was much quieter. At the very least, no one was shaken, and the white fog slowly returned to its original state. Xiao Hua saw the 3 injecting their magic power into the jade pendant and hurried forward, ready to follow suit. But Gong Mingwei shouted, Xiao Hua, you must not join. Our magic power is similar, and since childhood, our minds are connected. The 3 of us can use this jade pendant. If you join us, I'm afraid there will be a mistake. Moreover, your magic power is weak, so it won't be of much use. When it came to, since childhood, our minds are connected, not only Gong Mingwei, but also Zhang Qingxiao felt a burst of sweetness in their hearts. That's right. Xiaohua, just watch from the side. Watch how the three immortals of Shang Huaming defeat the evildoers of the 10,000 Poisons sect. The three immortals of Shang Huaming was a playful name that Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao and Xiao Xinrui used when they were young. When they grew older, they knew that this name didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, so they didn't dare to say it casually. At this time, Zhang Qingxiao was in a good mood and seemed to think of the beauty of the three little innocent girls when they were young. Xiao Xinrui's mouth was slightly smiling, and the corners of her eyes were curved. She almost wanted to rebuke. Sigh. Seeing the three of them like this, Xiaohua's heart also had an indescribable feeling. He was even more determined to plant the absorption fruit and exquisite grass. Moreover, he had also thought it through. Not only these spiritual herbs, as long as his two senior brothers and senior sister, no, as long as they needed any rare spiritual herbs, as long as they could grow it, he would definitely give it to them. He wouldn't let his eldest senior brother, second senior brother and senior sister be separated, he wouldn't let the sect leader worry about the matter of medicinal pills, and he wouldn't let Shang Huaming be bullied by the other sects of the Dawn Rain continent. Boom, 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 with three loud sounds in a row, Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation shook violently. The ground under Xiaohua's feet also shook. Xiaohua jumped up and floated in the air. Gong Mingwei and the other two looked at each other, their eyes full of horror. Their figures floated up, and the magic power in their hands poured into the jade pendant as if it didn't cost money. Outside the formation, in addition to the several qi refining disciples who were still relentlessly attacking, the so-called Protector Liao and Protector Zhen also took out their own magic tools. Protector Liao was holding a human-shaped celestial artifact in his hand. The celestial artifact was in the shape of a woman with ample breasts and plump buttocks. Her two pink arms were stretched out on top of her head, holding a black bead. Protector Liao's hand was holding the human-shaped magic tool's waist. She sent her magic power, and a thin black gas was released from the black bead, shooting directly above the white fog of Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation. This black gas seemed to be the nemesis of the white fog. When it came into contact, not only did the white fog dissipate a lot, but even the formation also shook, making a rumbling sound. Ha! Protector Liao, your jade-like beauty doesn't seem to be useful. Protector Zhen on the side saw that Protector Liao's attacks didn't have any significant effect and couldn't help but laugh. This is nothing. Protector Liao's charming eyes were like silk, and her face was crimson. She smiled tenderly and said, "I'm just warming up." As he spoke, he reached out and took out a red silk bag from his waist. He untied it, revealing a pink ball-shaped thing inside. This ball-shaped thing was hollow, and there were many triangular holes on the surface. It looked like a child's toy. Corpse poison butterfly? Seeing Protector Liao take out the small ball, Protector Zhen smiled and said, "This little thing can break the formation?" Protector Liao threw a flirtatious glance and said with a smile, "If it doesn't, then I'll ask Brother Zhen to help." As he spoke, he muttered an incantation and pointed his finger. The small ball flickered and hundreds of butterflies with colorful wings flapped out of the triangular hole in the small ball. They grew bigger and bigger until they were the size of a palm. Then, they flew towards the white mist above Yellow Flower Ridge. The corpse poison butterfly was indeed useful. It flew above the white fog and quietly stopped in the air. It was unknown what kind of magic the corpse poison butterfly used, but the white fog around it began to gradually disappear. However, it was a pity that the white mist disappeared extremely quickly at the beginning, but its speed soon decreased. Moreover, the number of corpse poison butterflies was still too small. Only a 100-foot wide area of the formation was affected. The other areas didn't have much of a change. How can this work? Your corpse poison butterfly is more like an itch. Protector Zhen rubbed his head and said when he saw this, "You're laughing at me. I already said that I'm going to cooperate with you. Why don't I see you using your spear?" Protector Liao twisted her waist, and the lines of her body also moved. It was very charming. "Okay, here I come." Protector Zhen laughed wildly. He patted the storage bag on his waist and said, "I'll let you taste the power of my immovable golden spear." Sure enough, as he moved his hand, he took out a golden spear from his storage bag. Protector Zhen then took out a few yellow talismans from his storage bag. He poured his magic power into the golden spear, and the golden spear suddenly became 2 feet long. "Watch me!" Protector Zhen leaped into the air, and the enlarged spear in his hand thrust forward. Like a phoenix nodding its head, it struck Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation 3 times in a row. The golden spear was very light in Protector Zhen's hand, but when it struck the formation, it was as heavy as a mountain. Dong. 3 consecutive sounds shook the formation. What should I do? Inside the formation, Xiao Hua flew in the air. His heart calmed down, and his mind spun rapidly. He wanted to find a way to deal with this. He also knew that Gong Mingwei was right. His cultivation was too low, and he really couldn't do anything. In a situation where 3 10th-layer qi refining cultivators were exhausted, he could only stand to the side and watch. I have to do something. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He now wished that he could reach the 10th layer of qi refining or foundation establishment in an instant. However, what could Xiao Hua, who was only in the 1st layer of qi refining, do? At this moment, there was another strong vibration. Protector Zhen, who was outside the formation, saw that his golden spear had no effect. He unconsciously became angry and threw the golden spear high up. He recited a spell and poured all his magic power into the spear. When the spear expanded several times, he pointed his finger. The golden spear was swung down like an arm and directly smashed into the formation. When Protector Liao saw this, he also waved the beauty-like jade in his hand. Thick black gas flew out, aimed at the position below the golden spear, and directly sprayed it. With a loud bang, the black gas and the golden spear hit the same position of the formation at the same time. The formation shook for a while, and the white fog disappeared, revealing the flowers, grass, and mountain rocks under the formation. Even Xiao Hua and the other 3 could see clearly. At this time, Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xianrui had been separated by the shock. The jade pendant had dimmed, and it flew out of Gong Mingwei's hand and floated in the air. Haha, I didn't expect Shang Huaming's formation to be so easy to break. Why didn't the other protectors in the sect snatch such a good job from us? Protector Zhen laughed. Isn't it because Protector Zhen is lucky? Shang Huaming's Xiao Yuehong is not in the sect, and there are only 4 little things presiding over the formation. This formation? I'm afraid it won't be so easy to break. Chapter 1240. Just as Protector Zhen and Protector Liao of the 10,000 Poisons sect were attacking Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation, in the west of Yellow Flower Ridge, in the distant sky, behind layers of clouds, a flying shuttle was hiding its whereabouts. It was Jiang Jiantong and Jiang Fan of the 100 Herbs sect. Father, should we take advantage of this time to make a move? At this time, Jiang Fan was no longer in a daze in front of Xiao Xianrui. His eyes were fixed on the dim yellow flower ridge in the distance, and he whispered, "If we let the 2 foundation establishment experts of the 10,000 Poisons sect attack for a while longer, Shang Huaming's great formation may really be broken." Jiang Jiantong was very satisfied with Jiang Fan's calmness. He smiled and said, "Yes, Fan, I thought you were fascinated by the beauty of the Xiao girl and would go to rescue her at all costs. Looking at how you deal with things now, it's far from what I expected." Father, you praise me. This is all because you taught me well. As a cultivator, the goal is to improve our cultivation and seek longevity. Beauty and companions are just worldly possessions. The Xiao girl is attractive to boy, but compared with the Great Way, it's still not enough. Father, you can rest assured about this. Jiang Fan said with a smile. Well, then Father can rest assured. Jiang Jiantong nodded, then looked into the distance and said, Fan, don't underestimate Shang Huaming. Although they only have 3.5 disciples, and the whole sect only has 5 people, They have been in existence for a long time. Our 100 Herbs sect can't compare with them. According to the records in the sect, Shang Huaming's disciples are sparse, and the number of people in the sect has never exceeded 100. Think about it, if such a small sect doesn't have any trump cards, how can it survive on the Dawn Rain continent? Father, you mean Shang Huaming's sect-protecting formation is far from being as weak as we thought? Jiang Fan looked carefully into the distance, somewhat puzzled. Perhaps this is a formation laid down by a gold core cultivator. Although the two protectors of the 10,000 Poison sect are both at the foundation establishment stage, it won't be easy for them to break through it. Jiang Jiantong said with a smile as he stroked his beard. Jiang Jiantong looked very young, but he was actually older than Xiao Yuehong. He was already more than 110 years old. It was only because he had been using the youth-retaining items of 100 Herbs Gate all year round that he managed to maintain his youthful appearance. Although he was older than Xiao Yuehong, his cultivation level was slightly lower than Xiao Yuehong's. Furthermore, the secret cultivation method of the 100 Herbs sect only allowed one to reach the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. Jiang Jiantong's cultivation level had been stuck at the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm for many years. Unless there was an accident or a fortuitous encounter, it was likely that he would not be able to make any further breakthroughs in this lifetime. Thinking back to his past self, who was in high spirits, and then looking at his own son, how similar were they? For the sake of the future of Spirit Grass Gate, Jiang Jiantong had no choice but to think of something else. However, today is also strange. A few days ago, I sent a messaging talisman to Shang Huaming. That messaging talisman was never put into Shang Huaming's body. It was only put in just before the 10,000 Poison sect attacked. Also, the 10,000 Poison sect has been attacking for so long. Why hasn't Xiao Yuehong shown himself? He's at the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm, a bit more powerful than me. Although Xiao Yuehong can't kill the two early-stage foundation establishment guardians of the 10,000 Poison sect, it's only right for him to scare them and expel them. Could it be that Xiao Yuehong isn't at Yellowflower Ridge? Father is right. I'm afraid the 10,000 Poison sect has received news that sect leader Xiao isn't at Shang Huaming, so they've come to attack. Jiang Fan laughed. It seemed he wasn't too worried about Shang Huaming or Xiao Xinrui's safety. That shouldn't be the case. Father's messaging talisman was for Xiao Yuehong. If it reached Shang Huaming, that means Xiao Yuehong is at Shang Huaming. Could it be that Xiao Yuehong has the idea of catching a turtle in a jar? Jiang Jiantong was very puzzled. And that's not the most strange thing. Then what is it? Jiang Fan was stunned and turned around to ask. It's been 3 years since the war between immortals and devils ended. In the demon-resisting valley, all the experts of the Dawn Rain continent have returned to their respective sects to recuperate. The war of immortals and devils has always been a great calamity for the experts of my Dawn Rain continent. If they didn't increase their cultivation in the demon-resisting valley, then they would perish in the demon-resisting valley. The power structure of the Dawn Rain continent is bound to be turbulent and change. However, this should be a matter of 10 years after the war of immortals and devils. Currently, there should still be 7 years left. Also, Shang Huaming and our 100 Herbs sect are just small sections. Even if we're affected, that's 10 years later. There's no reason for someone to have designs on Shang Huaming now. This 10,000 Poison sect, I can't see through them. Yes, Father is right. And if the 10,000 Poison sect really wants to capture Shang Huaming, they can't just send 2 early-stage foundation establishment guardians, can they? Jiang Fan came to a realization and said, Boy may not know sect leader Zhao's cultivation, but how could the 10,000 Poison sect not know? Oh, Father, Boy understands. You didn't let them take action, but? Jiang Fan slapped his forehead and looked at Jiang Jiantong with great admiration. Father, do you know that the 10,000 Poison sect definitely has a backup plan and strong reinforcements, so, that's exactly the case. Fan, the cultivation world is a deep pool. There are hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The 10,000 Poisons sect definitely wouldn't send 2 guardians to Shanghuaming for no reason. If they have any ulterior motives, they'll definitely go all out. If we go out now and Xiao Yuehong doesn't show up, won't we become Shanghuaming's shield? Oi understands. Also, the situation on the Dawn Rain continent is delicate now. Everyone is enduring silently and wants to fade out of the view of others and avoid 10 years of disputes. Even if the 10,000 Poisons sect has designs on Shanghuaming, our 100 Herbs sect has to carefully consider before participating. Otherwise, if other large sects see us, we might suffer an unexpected disaster. Oi understands. Jiang Jiantong looked back at the 2 elders and several disciples sitting cross-legged at the back of the flying shuttle and said with a smile, "Let's wait and see. Everything is just speculation. The situation is unpredictable. The disciples and elders that our 100 Herbs sect brought this time are comparable to the 10,000 Poisons sect in front of us. Even if we want to take action, we have to wait for Xiao Yuehong to show up. Only then will we have a chance of victory." Compared to the leisurely Jiang Jiantong and the others on the flying shuttle, Shanghuaming's Xiao Hua and the others were panicking. Seeing Gong Mingwei, Zhang Qingxiao, and Xiao Xinrui being sent flying, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He steadied himself and flew toward the jade pendant in midair. He grabbed it and poured his magic power into it. The jade pendant's originally dim brilliance gradually recovered with Xiao Hua's magic power. Several faint rays of light shot toward Shanghuaming's sect-protecting formation, and the disappeared white mist slowly reappeared. Of course, Xiao Hua's magic power was still far inferior to Gong Mingwei and the others. Xiao Hua used all his strength to stabilize the formation, which was on the verge of collapse. "Ha!" Protector Jin sneered. He looked at the blurred scene inside the formation and said, "A mere qi condensation stage child dares to go against my will?" With that, a hideous smile appeared on his ugly face. The magic power in his body surged and he pointed at the golden spear in the air. The golden spear danced for a while and then shot toward the formation. Zizi! Kacha! Kacha! The originally clear skies suddenly darkened. Countless dark clouds appeared above Yellowflower Ridge for no reason. Within the dark clouds, faint flashes of lightning could be seen. Not only was the brilliance emitted, but even the sound of thunder could be heard. This Protector Zhen was stunned. The golden spear in the air unconsciously stopped. What's going on? The change in the weather happened in an instant. It was far beyond his imagination. Ah? Protector Liao, who was behind Protector Zhen, screamed in disbelief. When Protector Zhen turned around and followed, no, he didn't even need to follow Protector Liao's finger. In the sky to the west of Yellowflower Ridge, there was a huge cloud and mist. Within the cloud and mist, a rather large dragon head poked out of the cloud and mist. 2 huge lantern-like eyes flickered with a ferocious expression as they stared at the 2 protectors. Behind the dragon head, a thick and meandering dragon body covered in huge scales swayed in the cloud and mist. A flood dragon? How is this possible? Protector Zhen was an expert in raising poisonous creatures in the 10,000 Poison sect. He had a certain understanding of the demon beasts of the Dawn Rain continent. He had never thought that he would be able to see a so-called flood dragon with his own eyes. No, this isn't a flood dragon. In his shock, Protector Zhen suddenly saw the huge horn on the dragon's head that hadn't formed yet. He looked at it carefully. The entire dragon's head was vivid and lifelike, but it was obviously a little blurry. Between the flickering lights, he could vaguely see the snake's head under the dragon's head. A giant python that has transformed into a flood dragon. Protector Zhen came to his senses, but he looked at the thunderclaps in the sky with a puzzled expression. A giant python with a profound cultivation base could transform into a flood dragon, but he had never heard of a flood dragon that was accompanied by thunder and mist when it appeared. How could he be thinking at this moment? Protector Zhen shouted, "Let's go!" The cultivation base of this giant python that has transformed into a flood dragon is comparable to that of a nascent soul realm cultivator. It's not something we can compare with. As he spoke, he pointed his finger. The golden spear turned into a golden light and flew to Protector Zhen's feet. Just as Protector Zhen's voice sounded, an incomparable pressure came from the dragon's head. Protector Zhen's heart turned cold. He didn't even dare to scan with his divine sense or look at the dragon's head. He activated his magic power, and the golden spear under his feet trembled slightly and was about to fly into the sky. Protector Liao was in an even worse state. When the pressure of the flood dragon came, she actually fell from the sky. She had only fallen for about 3 meters when a big red brocade handkerchief wrapped around her curvaceous body. After a slight pause, she was also shot into the air. The 2 protectors of the 10,000 Poisons sect fled for their lives, but when they looked at the flood dragon, their eyes were filled with endless mockery. The dragon opened its mouth, and an incomparably cold water blue brilliance swept towards the 2 protectors. The brilliance was very fast. Protector Liao and Protector Zhen had only flown a few feet when the brilliance caught up with them. Before they could do anything, an incredible scene occurred. Chapter 1241. The aqua blue light swept past the 2 enforcers. The 2 enforcers immediately froze in midair. Then different lights flashed from their bodies, and they were annihilated. Then a thin layer of ice appeared on their bodies. The layer of ice changed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it turned from a thin layer to several inches. They became 2 ice cubes in midair. The 2 protectors had actually been frozen in this block of ice. Through the transparent ice, one could see the 2 enforcers' terrified expressions and disbelief. The golden spear under Enforcer Zhen's feet and the red handkerchief on Enforcer Liao's body were both frozen in ice, losing their luster. The other aura-refining disciples attacking the Great Formation were even worse off. They tried to escape as soon as the flood dragon appeared, but how could their flying talismans compare to the 2 enforcers' magical weapons? When the aqua blue light swept past, they were all frozen in midair. Gotcha! A golden lightning bolt fell from the sky and struck the left side of the flood dragon. The flood dragon's eyes were filled with reverence. Its head looked up at the sky, then it opened its mouth and blew forward. Bang bang! A series of sounds rang out. The 2 enforcers of the 10,000 Poisons sect and several aura-refining disciples were all blasted apart. Their bodies and the ice exploded into tiny pieces, scattering into the air and disappearing without a trace. Even the so-called golden spear and embroidered handkerchief had disappeared without a trace. Rumble! Another wave of thunder roared. The flood dragon was shocked. It twisted its body, and its huge body and head quickly shrank. As the flood dragon shrank, the endless dark clouds and lightning in the sky also gradually disappeared. When the flood dragon turned into a small white snake, the clouds and lightning also disappeared, and the sky became clear once again. This little white snake was actually Xiao Hua's Little White. Little White descended from the sky. Its snake tongue extended and retracted, and it looked behind the clouds where the 100 Herbs sect was. Then, with a twist of its body, it shot into the Great Formation protecting sect like a flash of lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, behind the clouds in the distance, on the flying shuttle of the 100 Herbs gate, Jiang Fan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the similarly dumbfounded Jiang Jiantong, he said in a low voice, "Father." "Shu, this isn't the place to talk." Jiang Jiantong immediately stopped her. He formed an incantation gesture and sent his magic power into the flying shuttle. The flying shuttle quietly flew bit by bit into the distance. Only after flying for a long time did Jiang Jiantong dare to increase the speed. After a while, Jiang Fan finally asked, "Father, is that Shang Huaming's guardian demon beast?" When Jiang Jiantong heard this, he slowed down the speed of the flying shuttle and handed it over to an elder beside him to control. Only then did he smile bitterly and say, "Fanner, is there still a need to say this? If it wasn't Shang Huaming's guardian demonic beast, which demonic beast would be so bored as to come and kill people? This demonic beast looks like a flood dragon. It seems that I've only heard that the Taiching sect's guardian demon beast is a flood dragon whose cultivation is comparable to a nascent soul cultivator. How could Shang Huaming have such a powerful demon beast? Jiang Fan was still in disbelief. Sigh, I've never heard of it before. This is also the first time I've seen it. Jiang Jiantong also smiled bitterly and said, no wonder Shang Huaming has a long history and only a few disciples are not afraid of the risk of the sect being destroyed. It turns out that they have such a powerful flood dragon protecting the sect. Sigh, looking at the pressure of this flood dragon, even if it's not at the nascent soul level, it's not far from it. Isn't that so? The Taiching sect's flood dragon is only at the nascent soul level. Shang Huaming's can't possibly surpass the Taiching sect's. This is even better. With Xiao Yuehong's strength, our 100 Herbs sect's alliance with Shang Huaming will have more prospects. Jiang Jiantong's eyes flashed with a strange light. He looked at Jiang Fan and said, although our plan may need to be adjusted slightly, it seems like this is a rare opportunity. Maybe Shang Huaming's cultivation method is not only at the golden core stage. Jiang Fan said with a smile. Yes, we must have a good relationship with Shang Huaming. Fan, immediately ask Fan, to send a message to Xiao Yuehong's girl, or you can go and visit her in person. This is very important. You can't be careless. Boy understands. Xiao Xinrui is still shy because it's her first awakening of love. Let sister invite her to the 100 Herbs sect first. After a long time, boy will be sure. Good, Jiang Jiantong stroked his chin and was very satisfied with Jiang Fan's answer. He smiled and said, just that demonic beast comparable to the golden core stage, everything we do is worth it. What Jiang Jiantong didn't know was that, just as they were carefully driving the flying shuttle to escape, a faint brilliance flashed in the air not far behind them. A tall, handsome Taoist with a white face and no beard appeared out of thin air. He looked at the brilliance of the flying shuttle and snorted. 100 Herbs sect wants to ally with Shang Huaming? Some insignificant small sects really have a lot of ideas. Then he turned his head and looked at the restored Shang Huaming formation and frowned. Why does the flood dragon have a cultivation comparable to that of a divine transformation stage cultivator? The one in the Taiching sect is only a nascent soul stage cultivator. If that's the case, I'll have to change my plan. It doesn't make sense. Demonic beasts should be able to transform when they reach the divine transformation stage. Why is this flood dragon still? The Taoist frowned and seemed to be thinking about something. The Taoist's face suddenly showed surprise. Needless to say, why am I so stupid? Didn't the ancient books in the sect occasionally mention the dragonization incantation? It must be. This flood dragon's body is not that of a flood dragon, but of a python, or even a snake. No wonder the dragon head was illusory just now. Only this python has the dragon transformation art, which allows it to transform into a dragon. Only its original form is a python, and its cultivation has yet to reach the transformation realm, which is why it can only transform into a dragon. Only the dragon transformation art can have such powerful power. The dragonization incantation is a rare body-refining technique in the world. Cultivators in the human world only need to cultivate to the 3rd level of the dragonization incantation, then they don't need to fear the lightning tribulation. My goodness, I still want the flood dragon's inner core. If I don't ask the 10,000 Poisons sect to test it out, wouldn't I be buying the casket and returning the pearl? It's just that this flood dragon is already at the divine transformation stage, and I am only at the late stage of the nascent soul stage. I'm still not its match. Don't tell me. I need to find a helper? The young Taoist was hesitant, but then the Taoist's eyes lit up. Look at the flood dragon's appearance, accompanied by the lightning in the sky. I'm afraid this flood dragon has reached the crucial point of transforming into a dragon? If I wait until it transforms into a dragon, then it's at its weakest. Perhaps I will have a chance? However, this opportunity is fleeting. If I don't seize it, I won't have another chance in the future. Sigh, forget it. At worst, I'll just share the inner core with others. The young Taoist seemed to have made up his mind. He looked at Shang Huaming and smiled meaningfully. Then, his figure turned into a rainbow and shot in another direction. Jiang Jiantong, who was at the foundation establishment stage, didn't know that a late nascent soul stage expert was hiding behind him. Xiao Hua and the others behind Shang Huaming's great formation were even more unaware. When Xiao Hua channeled his transcendence energy into the jade pendant, the grand formation gradually began to recover. It was already impossible to see what was happening outside. Therefore, when thunder rumbled outside the grand formation and Little White transformed into a flood dragon and killed the two 10,000 poison sect protectors and several aura refining disciples, Xiao Hua didn't know about this. He thought the invaders from the 10,000 poison sect were using a new divine ability, so he only channeled what little transcendence energy he had into the jade pendant to quickly restore the grand formation's white fog. Gong Mingwei and the others did the same. They climbed up from the ground and also sent their magic power into the jade pendant, wanting to help Xiao Hua stabilize the great formation. Although they were prepared to be defeated again, they waited for a long time. Even when the thunder stopped outside, there were no more attacks. Their eyes were filled with confusion. They didn't know what was happening outside. Xiao Xinrui said nervously, "Senior martial brother, how about we take a look outside? Is the magic power in your body enough?" Gong Mingwei smiled bitterly. Xiao Xinrui shook her head. Zhang Qingxiao also shook her head. Of course, they didn't ask Xiao Hua at all. "How about this, junior martial sister? You rest for a while and recover your magic power. Then, we'll take a look outside. With us here, this great formation should be fine." Gong Mingwei thought for a moment and said, "Yes, senior martial brother." Xiao Xianrui nodded and took out a spirit stone from her storage bag. She sat cross-legged and absorbed the spirit energy of heaven and earth inside. After the time it took to eat a meal, the outside was still calm. Even Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao took their hands off the jade pendant. Xiao Xinrui opened her eyes and took the jade pendant from Xiao Hua's hand. She muttered something and her fingers formed a seal. Then she waved the jade pendant and a mirror appeared in front of everyone. The place where the protectors of the 10,000 poison sect were just now was reflected in the mirror. Strange, what? Is there no one? There's no trace of them at all. Xiao Xianrui felt strange when she saw that everything was as calm as usual. She looked around Shang Huaming's body, but she didn't find anything wrong. What's going on? Xiao Hua was also puzzled. He almost wanted to go out and see what was going on. Of course, he immediately thought that this might be the 10,000 poison sect's plan to lure the snake out of its hole. But they almost destroyed the great formation just now. Is there still a need to lure the snake out of its hole? Xiao Hua thought again. Gong Mingwei and the others obviously had the same idea. However, no one dared to go out and release the great formation. In the end, everyone decided to wait and see. Of course, in order to deal with the sudden change, the three of them decided not to return to the tranquil cave. They all stayed behind the great formation. If the 10,000 poison sect made any moves, they would be able to react in time. Contrary to Xiao Hua and the others' expectations, another 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Not a single person from the 10,000 poison sect showed up. The entire Yellow Flower Ridge was as peaceful as before, causing the four of them to scratch their heads in confusion. They really couldn't understand why the 10,000 poison sect was attacking so anticlimactic. At the same time, Xiao Hua and the others were even more worried about Shang Huaming's sect leader, Xiao Yuehong. There had been no news from him for more than a month. They didn't know what had happened in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. Chapter 1242. On this day, it was already late in the morning. Xiao Hua and the other three sat cross-legged, looking at each other. No one dared to speak. Everyone's eyes were filled with anxiety, but no one could do anything. Suddenly, a red light flashed, and a communication talisman fell from the sky and landed in front of Xiao Xianrui. Master? A message from Sect Master? Xiaohua jumped up and looked at the communication talisman in front of Xiao Xianrui excitedly. Although no one knew the contents of the communication talisman, it meant that Xiao Yuehong was fine. How could they not be happy? Io, father is injured. When Xiao Xianrui picked up the communication talisman, she crushed the light and heard Xiao Yuehong's voice. Her expression changed greatly. Where did he come from? How is his injury? Gong Mingwei asked quickly. Father didn't say the specific injury. He only said that he would be back soon and asked us to hold on for a while. Xiao Xianrui's expression was uncertain. Hold on for a while? Zhang Qingxiao was a little stunned. Master, he didn't just receive the communication talisman, did he? Let's go. Let's go to the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. Maybe we can meet Master. Gong Mingwei made a prompt decision. He threw out a flying talisman and flew up first. When Xiaohua was about to leave, he heard Gong Mingwei say, Xiaohua, don't go. You just stay here and guard. If there is any movement, immediately send a message to us. With that, Xiao Xianrui threw down a communication talisman. Yes, little brother understands. Xiaohua took the flying talisman and put it in his arms. He watched the three of them fly into the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. The direction was exactly where Xiao Yuehong went. After the three of them disappeared, Xiaohua sat down cross-legged and focused his attention on the space behind his head. Inside the space, the small medicinal field that was arranged by the puppet was growing luxuriantly at this moment. The light ball in the space was still constantly rotating, and the radiance that was constantly sprinkled evenly on the various spiritual grasses in the medicinal field. It was just as Xiaohua thought. In the 30 days, the spiritual herbs in the space had been more than 30 years old. Although Xiaohua had never seen a real 30-year-old spiritual herb, during the 3 years he had been in Songhua Underworld, he had taken care of the medicinal field while doing some chores. In his free time, he had also read some ancient books in Songhua Underworld sect. Shang Huaming's records were divided into two types. One was a jade slip made of jade and other materials. It was specialized in recording large amounts of information. Furthermore, Shang Huaming's unique restrictions could be placed on the jade slip to prevent the disciples of other sects from spying on it. This kind of jade slip could only be read by those with divine sense, and divine sense was a divine ability that only late-stage qi refining disciples could possess. The books that Xiaohua was looking at were of the second type. They were similar to the books that were commonly seen in the secular world. However, some of them were recorded on paper, while others were recorded on special silk. Cultivators were different from the people of the secular world. Not only were their lifespans long, their inheritances were even longer. Some of the inheritances were recorded using special silk and special brushes and inks in order to be preserved generation after generation. From Shang Huaming's records, Xiaohua had learned a lot of spiritual herb planting and basic alchemy techniques. Unfortunately, in cherishing Flower Peak's medicinal field, the oldest one was an absorption fruit that was more than 10 years old. He had never seen one that was more than 20 years old. As for alchemy, Xiaohua's cultivation was only at the first stage of the qi refining realm. Those alchemy techniques were all rote memorization, and he didn't even have the slightest chance to put them into practice. Compared to Shang Huaming's records, Xiaohua looked at the top of the 1-foot-tall, dark green, bamboo-like spiritual herb in the space. There was a thumb-sized fruit that was so red that it had already turned purple. He couldn't help but be delighted. This was precisely the appearance of an absorption fruit that was more than 30 years old. The absorption fruit grew at the top of the absorption grass. When the absorption grass was 10 years old, it would grow into an absorption fruit. At that time, the absorption fruit would be the size of a bean and green. After the absorption grass grew into an absorption fruit, it would no longer change. It would only absorb the essence of the world's origin energy and send it to the absorption fruit at the top. As it grew, the absorption fruit would gradually grow bigger, and its eyes would also gradually turn red. A 20-year-old absorption fruit should be the size of a thumb and pure red. Only after another 10 years of growth would this absorption fruit turn purple. And the purple absorption fruit was precisely the main ingredient for refining the Peiyuan pill. After looking at the main absorption fruit, Xiaohua looked at the other spiritual herbs. They also had the same appearance of being 30 years old. Even the parasol peak grass and blood-devouring grass used to refine the parasol celestial pill, these ordinary spiritual herbs that were usually only used for a few years, were now terrifyingly old. Hee, if sect master saw this, wouldn't he be so shocked that his jaw would drop? Xiaohua was somewhat proud of himself. If a 30-year-old spiritual herb was used to refine the parasol celestial pill, then its efficacy, how astonishing would it be? The next time Senior Marshal Brother and Senior Marshal Sister go to E-City, I'm afraid that they will really be snatched away by someone. The corners of Xiaohua's mouth revealed a smile. He couldn't help but think of these things that were both funny and exciting. Unfortunately, it had only been 30 days, and there still wasn't any movement in the area of the exquisite grass. The seeds of the exquisite grass hadn't sprouted. However, Xiaohua's heart was also calm. He already had a 30-year-old absorption fruit, so how could he not have a 300-year-old exquisite grass? The cultivation period was long, and although he was still in the first layer of the aura refining realm, he could still wait for a year. Oh, right, I have to put the puppet back in the medicinal field. If sect master suddenly went to the medicinal field, it would be hard to explain. Looking at the puppet standing beside the medicinal field in high spirits, Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization. Also, sect master told me to use the puppet sparingly, afraid that he didn't have enough spirit stones. I've never been stingy. As Xiaohua thought this, he flew to Shihua Peak. When he took the puppet out of the space, he opened the mechanism behind it and took out the spirit stone. Xiaohua couldn't help but frown. It wasn't because the spirit stone had been used up too much, but rather, the spirit stone looked the same as the one he had just put in. It didn't turn white or dim because it had been used for several tens of days. That's strange. I remember that when I used it 3 years ago, I had to give it a spirit stone every 100 days. The sect master gave me the puppet and the spirit stones this time, so he probably took them back when the spirit stones were used up. But why does the spirit stone look like it hasn't been used at all? Xiaohua's eyes turned and widened. The light of the cube, it can't be that it can also replenish the spirit stone in the puppet. My goodness, if that's the case, wouldn't the puppet consume even more of the cube's light if it's inside the space? Xiaohua didn't know when the cube's light would be used up, so he wanted to shine all of the light on the spiritual plants to reduce unnecessary wastage. Okay, I'll leave the puppet here first. After a while, when sect master is refining the Peiyuan pill, I'll send it back to the space. The light of this space is really amazing. It's really like a sun. I'm afraid I'll need more spiritual plants in the future, so there's no harm in expanding the medicinal field. With a whoosh, a summoning talisman flew over. Xiaohua, quickly come to Min-Si Peak. It was Xiao Xianrui's voice transmission. Sect master is back. Xiaohua's face was overjoyed. He threw the puppet on the ground and was about to fly up, but after thinking for a moment, he took out a dozen or so purple absorption fruits from the space and put them in a jade bottle from his room. Only then did he fly up and go straight to Min-Si Peak. When he arrived at Min-Si Peak, in front of Shang Huaming's main hall, he saw a beam of light flying over from not far away. Xiaohua went to meet it. It was Xiao Yuehong's boat-shaped magic tool. Seeing Xiao Yuehong standing upright on the flying boat, Xiaohua's heart warmed slightly. When he looked carefully, he saw that Xiao Yuehong's face was deathly pale, and the Taoist robe he was wearing wasn't the same one he wore when he went out. Presumably, he encountered some danger in the depths of Yellow Flower Ridge. His Taoist robe was also torn. When the flying boat approached and landed on Min-Si Peak, Xiaohua took a few steps forward and bowed. Greetings, sect master. Xiao Yuehong was just about to raise his hand when Xiao Xianrui jumped down from the flying boat and reached out to support him. Xiao Yuehong smiled wryly. Little Rui, father was only slightly injured. There's no need for this, right? Then he turned to Xiaohua and said, It's fine. Don't worry. As long as sect master is fine, that's good. When Xiaohua saw this, he felt a great sense of relief. Xiao Xianrui helped Xiao Yuehong off the flying boat. After Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao came down, Gong Mingwei pointed a finger at the flying boat, causing it to rapidly shrink and fall into his hand. Only then did he hand it back to Xiao Yuehong. Io, even eldest senior brother, is in charge of the flying boat. Sect master's injuries aren't light. Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. Following which, everyone entered Shang Huaming's main hall. This was a huge hall. At the head of the hall was the sect master's seat. Below him were many seats on the left and right. They were all for the elders, protectors, and disciples. At this time, Shang Huaming only had 5 people. When they walked into the main hall, it was really spacious. Therefore, Xiao Yuehong rarely let them come here. However, although Xiao Yuehong's face was pale today, his spirit seemed to be very good. He was actually happy to bring everyone to the main hall. Xiao Yuehong walked to the seat of honor in the middle and sat down. Gong Mingwei and the other 2 also sat down on Xiao Yuehong's left side. Xiao Yuehong looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing, and waved his hand. He pointed to a seat on his right and said with a smile, "Xiao Hua, you also sit." "Sect master, this disciple doesn't dare." Xiao Hua hurriedly bowed and shook his head. "This is the seat of an official disciple of Shang Huaming. This disciple hasn't cultivated to the 3rd layer of qi refining, so this seat can't be taken." "Sit. If master says you can sit, then you can sit." Xiao Yuehong laughed. "This..." Xiao Hua thought for a moment and still shook his head. "Thank you for your kindness, sect master. Let's wait for a while." "How you, child?" Xiao Yuehong seemed to like Xiao Hua's serious temperament very much. He waved his hand and said, "Then come to master's side." Xiao Hua accepted the order and walked to Xiao Yuehong's side. "It seems you want to take the Peiyuan pill immediately. Your cultivation will definitely improve by another level," Xiao Yuehong said with a smile. "This disciple doesn't dare." Xiao Yuehong's words were correct, but Xiao Hua only smiled and bowed. "Daddy, you picked an absorbing fruit?" Xiao Xianrui asked in surprise. Cough, cough, Xiao Yuehong coughed for a while, then his face flushed red. He patted his hand and took out several jade bottles from his storage bag. From one of the jade bottles, he poured out a purple absorbing fruit the size of half a thumb. He smiled and said, "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. I only got a few. It's a pity, it's not old enough, but it can still be used." Chapter 1243. Although Xiao Yuehong's tone was regretful, the expression on his face was quite proud. When Xiao Hua saw this, his heart ached for no reason. It was as if he saw a kind father showing off to his children the good gift he had found for them. When talking about this precious gift, this kind father only talked about the flaws of the gift. He didn't talk about the hardships he had to go through to obtain this gift. "Father." Xiao Xinrui, of course, heard this and her eyes turned red. "Disciple is untalented and made master work hard." Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao also felt uneasy and stood up. "Hee, it's okay, it's okay. Master has been there before. This time, it's just a revisit. It's no big deal. It's just that master was careless for a moment. Now, didn't I come back safely?" Cough, cough. Speaking of this, Xiao Yuehong coughed again. Wait for master to meditate for a while, then I'll open the furnace and refine pills. With these absorption fruits, I should be able to refine a few Peiyuan pill. Master, you should rest first. When your injuries are completely under control, it won't be too late to refine the Peiyuan pill. Zhang Qingxiao said emotionally. Time waits for no man. Xiao Yuehong had obviously heard Gong Mingwei and the other 2 talk about how the 10,000 Poisons sect attacked the sect protecting Great Array. Although he didn't know the strangeness, he understood that someone was targeting Shang Huaming. If you don't quickly improve your cultivation, it will be troublesome if the 10,000 Poison sect sends people again. Gong Mingwei and the other 2 had seen the ferocity of the 10,000 Poison sect's attack and knew that what master said was true. They could only nod silently. Sect master? Seeing Xiao Yuehong like this, Xiao Hua didn't dare to hide anything. He was also afraid that if he didn't say it now, it would affect Xiao Yuehong's pill refining in the future. At the same time, he also wanted to quickly improve the cultivation of his senior brothers and sisters to deal with the 10,000 poison sect. What's wrong, Xiaohua? Xiao Yuehong was stunned and turned to look at Xiaohua. Seeing Xiaohua hesitating, he smiled and said, "It's okay, this Peiyuan pill should be able to refine more than 3 pills. I'll leave the rest to you." Hehe, of course, if Master's luck is bad and I can only refine 3 pills, then you won't have a share this time. Don't blame me. No, sect leader. Xiaohua was greatly anxious. He repeatedly waved his hand and took out the dozen or so jade bottles from his bosom. He said, "Sect master, disciple didn't mean it that way. This is of course what you instructed disciple to do before you left. Disciple was fortunate enough to not disappoint you and found them from a hidden place in Cherishing Flower Peak." Oh, not bad. Xiao Yuehong was very gratified. With a wave of his hand, a jade bottle flew into his hand. He didn't open it and only looked at it in his hand. He said with a smile, "Xiaohua, you're quite considerate. Thank you for your hard work." Xiaohua wanted to explain, but he knew that the absorption fruit he took out was much stronger than Xiao Yuehong's. For a moment, he didn't know how to open his mouth. "Hehe, you little brat, when did you pick this thing? Why didn't you tell us?" Zhang Qingxiao scolded with a smile on her face. "Second senior apprentice brother, you've misunderstood. Right after I picked it up, I came across 100 Herbs Gates messaging talisman. Right after that, I was attacked by 10,000 Poisons Gates attack formation. During this period of time, how could I remember these things? If not for sect master mentioning it, I would have almost forgotten about it." Xiaohua explained. What kind of spirit herb is this? We've all played around Cherishing Flower Peak since we were young. I'm afraid there aren't any good spirit herbs. Zhang Qingxiao smiled and picked up a jade bottle. He was also 27 or 28 years old this year. He had grown up in Songhua Ming since he was young. He was older than 30 years old, so he naturally had seen it before. "It's absorption fruit," Xiaohua answered honestly. "What? Absorption fruit? Other than Cherishing Flower Peak, Songhua Ming has absorption fruit in other places?" Everyone was stunned. Xiao Yuehong and Zhang Qingxiao opened their jade bottles at almost the same time. Ah? The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air, stunned on the spot. "What's wrong?" "Father," Xiao Xianrui said curiously. "Second brother, what's going on?" Gong Mingwei also asked curiously. "Take a look." Xiao Yuehong waved his hand, astonishment flashing through his eyes. Gong Mingwei and Xiao Xinrui seemed to understand something. Suppressing the surprise in their hearts, they each picked up a jade bottle. Sure enough, although the two of them were prepared, they were still shocked by the 30-year-old absorption fruit. "Xiaohua, are these all 30-year-old absorption fruits?" Xiao Xinrui looked at the dozen jade bottles, her voice trembling. Since she could remember, Songhua Ming had never seen so many absorption fruits appear at once. "Yes, senior sister, they are all absorbing fruits that are more than 30 years old." Xiaohua once again answered honestly. "Where did you pick them?" Xiao Yuehong asked with a frown. Xiaohua told him one of the places Xiaobai took him to. "What? There's a small cave there? I played there when I was young. How could I not find it?" Zhang Qingxiao almost jumped up in disbelief. "Second senior brother, if you don't believe me, I'll take you to see it," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Why would I go there?" Zhang Qingxiao hurriedly waved his hand. "I have to squat down to go in. I'm not going." Xiao Yuehong thought for a moment and asked, "Then, besides these absorption fruits, are there any other spiritual herbs?" Xiaohua was a bit speechless. He had other spiritual herbs in his space, but he didn't know what Xiao Yuehong wanted. He could only shake his head and say, "It seems that besides these absorption fruits, there are no other spiritual herbs." Oh, Xiao Yuehong was a bit regretful, but then he laughed again. "Look at me, I was a bit carried away. Xiaohua had such an opportunity to find so many absorption fruits in a secret place. I should be very satisfied. Why would I be greedy for no reason? Sect Master, what do you mean? Xiao Hua understood that Xiao Yuehong might be thinking about the exquisite grass, so he reminded Xiao Yuehong in advance. It's nothing. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand and said with a smile, Master worked hard and almost lost his life to get these useless absorption fruits. You, on the other hand, just casually searched around the house and you actually got so many. Although it's good, it's a big problem for Master. Yes, Xiao Yuehong's harvest compared to the things Xiao Hua took out really made Xiao Yuehong feel embarrassed. But after hearing this, Xiao Hua felt that something was wrong and asked, why is that? The absorption fruit is the main ingredient in refining the Peiyuan pill, but it also needs to be combined with the absorption fruit. Our Shanweiming sect doesn't have this kind of grass. If the absorption fruit I picked is not old enough, I can use other spiritual herbs to replace it. Since you've picked more than 10 absorption fruits, then I'll naturally have to use enough aged black tuber grass. Father, city just passed, I'm afraid the next time will be half a year later. This black tubergrass is not easy to find. Well, although the black tubergrass is not rare, it's not easy to find one that is old enough. Fortunately, 10 to 20 years old can be used. We can use other spiritual herbs to exchange for it. Who should we exchange with? Xiao Xinrui just frowned and seemed to think of something, her face blushing for no reason. Naturally, we'll go to the 100 Herbs Gate. Xiao Yuehong waved his hand, and the red message talisman appeared in his hand. The 100 Herbs Gate is good at growing spiritual herbs, they naturally have enough black tubergrass. We can definitely exchange these absorption fruits for the black tubergrass. Then he changed the topic. Furthermore, the fact that the 100 Herbs Gate sent me, Shang Huaming, a message in advance shows their sincerity in forming an alliance. Now that I, Shang Huaming, have overcome my difficulties, I should inform the 100 Herbs Gate and give my thanks. I'll do as father says. Xiao Xinrui lowered her head and said in a low voice. Gong Mingwei and Zhang Qingxiao looked at each other with displeasure. Xiao Hua. Xiao Yuehong shouted. Disciple is here. Go ahead. Although you're not my official disciple, when the leader of the 100 Herb Gate came to visit me, I've already made it clear that I'll take you in as my disciple sooner or later. Therefore, it's not rude for you to come and express your gratitude on my behalf. Also, your two senior brothers and sisters still have to maintain the sect-protecting formation, so it's not convenient for them to go out. You've used a flying talisman, so you won't be any slower than them. It's just right for you to go. Hearing this, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Sect Master is right. I'm only a first-level Qi refinement disciple. Even if I encounter the 10,000 Poisons Gate, they won't take me seriously. I'm the most suitable person to go out. But Xiao Hua has never been to Yellow Flower Ridge. His cultivation is low. I'm afraid he hasn't seen the dangers of the cultivation world. Zhang Qingxiao said worriedly, we don't need to be in a hurry to improve our cultivation. Let's wait for things to calm down first. Hearing this, Xiao Hua was greatly moved. He smiled and said, Many thanks, second senior martial brother. However, little brother has always been a genius at escaping. Even a 10th level Qi refining cultivator wouldn't be able to catch up to little brother, so how could a foundation establishment senior make things difficult for little brother? Besides, second senior brother also saw the 10,000 Poisons Gates attack. I'm afraid it won't end well. It's better to improve our Shang Huaming strength as soon as possible. Besides, I'm counting on this Peiyuan pill to break through to the first level of Qi refinement. If second senior brother doesn't let me go out, I'll be anxious. Gong Mingwei stared at Xiao Hua for a while, then walked forward and patted him on the shoulder. You'll have to go down the mountain sooner or later. Just treat this as an experience. Remember, if you can't beat them, run. You're only at the first level of Qi refinement, so no matter how you run, it won't be too much. Xiao Xinrui also nodded at Xiao Hua and said, Go early and come back early. Thank you, senior sister. Xiao Hua said with a smile. After the three of them finished talking, Xiao Yuehong took out a stack of flying talismans and some other yellow talismans from his storage bag and handed them over. He said, "Your cultivation is low, so you can only use these yellow talismans. On the way, you just need to fly. It's best if you don't use the other yellow talismans, especially the cultivators from other sections. If you don't provoke them and avoid them, there shouldn't be any problems." Disciple understands. Xiaohua put away the yellow talismans and cupped his hands. Disciple will go to the 100 Herbs Gate now? And go now. Xiao Yuehong nodded and poured a strand of transcendence energy into the summoning talisman of the 100 Herbs Gate. The summoning talisman flew up with a whoosh and turned into a crimson light that flew out of Shang Huaming's formation. Master has already told you in the summoning talisman that you're going. You only need to go to the 100 Herbs Gate. Sect leader Jiang of the 100 Herbs Gate has already seen you, so you don't need any keepsake, Xiao Yuehong said. Then he told Xiaohua the location of the 100 Herbs Gate and sent him out of Shang Huaming's formation. Chapter 1244. 100 Herbs Gates. Yao Nong Peak was indeed very far from Shang Huaming's Yellow Flower Ridge. It was more than 3,000 miles away. Xiaohua's round trip would probably take 3 or 4 days. Leaving the protection of Shang Huaming's Great Formation and relying on his own strength to gain experience in the Dawn Rain continent for 4 days, this was a kind of test for Xiaohua. However, this was also Xiao Yuehong's last resort. If it was a normal day, Xiao Yuehong would definitely go personally for such an important matter. At the very least, he would let Xiao Xianrui represent him. But now, Xiao Yuehong was injured and the 10,000 Poisons sect was coveting him outside. He could only rely on Shang Huaming's Great Formation to deal with them. Xiao Xianrui and the other two were only in the 10th layer of the Qi refining realm. In front of the 10,000 Poisons sect's foundation establishment protectors, they were like babies. If he considered the urgency of the matter, he could only let Xiaohua take the risk. In fact, the most important thing was that Xiao Yuehong and the others knew that although Xiaohua's cultivation was low, after using the flying talisman, his speed was a bit faster than Xiao Xianrui and the others. Instead of letting Xiao Xianrui and the others go, it was better to let Xiaohua go. In particular, the flying speed was disproportionate to the cultivation level, which was very contrary to common sense. This kind of unexpected trump card would of course have an unexpected effect. Moreover, although the distance from Shang Huaming to the 100 Herbs Gate was quite far, it was a flat road all the way. There were no deep mountains or treacherous rivers, no powerful demonic beasts, and no big sections. Xiaohua was just a mediocre cultivation disciple, so he didn't attract much attention. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Yuehong didn't even give him a storage pouch. He only let him put everything in his bosom to avoid attracting the greed of others. Xiao Yuehong carefully opened Shang Huaming's Great Formation and flew out with Xiaohua. Looking at Xiaohua's back that was indeed faster than Gong Mingwei and the others, he couldn't help but think, "Father." Xiao Xianrui was a bit worried. Letting Xiaohua go out like this. Aren't we too busy? After all, he's only 18 years old and has just reached the first layer of the Qi refining realm. Xiaorui, can you fly as fast as Xiaohua? If you and Xiaohua met a 12th layer Qi refining expert at the same time, do you think they would let you or Xiaohua go? Xiao Yuehong asked calmly. This. Xiao Xianrui was a bit speechless. Don't ask so many questions. Junior sister, what master said makes sense. Xiaohua's cultivation is so shallow, as long as you don't provoke him, others definitely won't lower themselves to his level. Zhang Qingxiao laughed. That's not necessarily true. Xiao Xianrui retorted. There are too many unreasonable people in Yi City. Who knows what kind of people Xiaohua will meet? Xiaohua is a lucky person. Maybe he won't encounter anything along the way. Gong Mingwei also agreed with Xiao Yuehong's opinion. That's right. He was able to find the absorption fruit in such a secretive place. His luck isn't something an ordinary person can compare to. Zhang Qingxiao really couldn't imagine that the place where she had played since she was a child actually hid such a good thing. Second brother, go take a look right now. The place Xiaohua spoke of. Does it have? Xiao Yuehong interrupted them and instructed. There was no need for that. But Xiao Hua has already picked it, why should I go? Zhang Qingxiao said with a sad face. Go now. Xiao Yuehong's expression suddenly changed. Yes, master. Seeing Xiao Yuehong get angry for a long time, Zhang Qingxiao shrunk her neck and quickly flew away. Seeing this, Xiao Xinrui rolled her eyes and whispered, Father, you don't think. Xiao Yuehong glanced at him, sighed, and no longer spoke. Not long after, Zhang Qingxiao resentfully returned and reported, Master, the place Xiao Hua spoke of has been found. There is a small trace of being picked and it looks very fresh. Xiao Yuehong frowned, There is no absorption grass. No, master, there is not a single grass on the ground. It was all taken by Xiao Hua. Oh, that's right, Xiao Hua hasn't learned how to pick spiritual grass. Xiao Yuehong nodded slightly. Father, Xiao Hua, there should be no doubt. Xiao Xinrui laughed. If there is something wrong with him, why would he give such a good absorption fruit to us for no reason? Moreover, he gave out more than 10 of them at once. If these things were put on the market, they would be extremely popular goods. Father has no intention of suspecting Xiao Hua. Xiao Yuehong smiled bitterly. It's just, most of the 30-year-old absorption fruits are protected by spiritual beasts. Wasn't Father injured by a spiritual beast this time? And Xiao Hua actually took out so many absorption fruits at once, and the quality is so good, I feel that there is something fishy. Master, it doesn't matter if it's strange or not. Even if there's something fishy going on, Xiao Hua is our Shang Huaming's disciple. He can bring me Shang Huaming, so why do you care so much about him? Gong Mingwei also laughed. I think that the more spiritual grass he finds, the better. Even if he finds a 300-year-old exquisite grass, won't the one who benefits in the end still be me, Shang Huaming? Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. Xiao Yuehong also felt that it was reasonable. He waved his hand and said, Guard the array. Master will prepare to refine pills. When Xiao Hua comes back with the black tusk grass, Master will start refining pills. Xiao Hua's dozen absorption fruits should be enough to refine dozens of Peiyuan pill. If you are lucky, I'm afraid you can directly advance to the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm. Gong Mingwei and the other two were overjoyed when they heard this. Zhang Qingxiao bared her teeth and said, How many pills does Xiao Hua need to advance to the 2nd layer of the Qi refining realm? Xiao Yuehong's face showed a strange expression. He also shrugged and curled his lips. This child, who knows? Xiao Hua didn't expect that taking out so many absorption fruits at once would arouse Xiao Yuehong's suspicion. He also didn't expect Xiao Yuehong to really let Zhang Qingxiao go to the small cave. At this time, he just left Yellow Flower Ridge. According to Xiao Yuehong's instructions, he didn't fly away in a hurry. Instead, he landed on a mountain ridge not far from Yellow Flower Ridge, sat cross-legged, and waited for a while. After about a cup of tea's time, he didn't see anything unusual. He stood up and looked around, thinking, if there were disciples of the 10,000 Poisons sect, wouldn't they have come out by now? Since they didn't come to find trouble with me, they probably didn't put me in their eyes. Or maybe they aren't around here. Then Xiao Hua roughly looked at all the things. In addition to some flying talismans, Xiao Yuehong gave him a few fireball talismans, icicle talismans, defensive talismans, and even an extremely rare concealing talisman. These were all life-saving things for Xiao Hua. In addition, there were 3 jade bottles that Xiao Yuehong brought back. Inside were 20-year-old absorption fruits. Xiao Hua tidied them up a bit and put them into the space in his mind. Although it wouldn't attract attention if he put them in his bosom, they weren't as hidden as in the space after all. After tidying up, Xiao Hua's figure flew up. He didn't directly fly to Yaonong Peak. Instead, he turned a corner and flew towards a flat land with gentle terrain. Because according to Xiao Yuehong's estimation, if he flew directly, he would first have to pass through a desolate plateau. Although there weren't any powerful demon beasts there, Xiao Hua's cultivation was really low. Even if he encountered some ordinary demon beasts, their strength would be at the 3rd or 4th layer of the Qi refining realm, far from what Xiaohua could deal with. At that time, instead of being chased by demon beasts, it would be better to directly take a detour. Moreover, in a place where there were few people, if he encountered other cultivators, well, as long as he encountered cultivators, their strength would be higher than Xiaohua's. If they were to harm Xiaohua, wouldn't there be no one to call for help in the surroundings? And in a flat land, admittedly, the chances of encountering other cultivators were high, but there would also be a lot of people. No one would throw away their own face and go bully a little cultivator at the first layer of the qi refining realm. Especially when this little cultivator didn't even have a storage pouch. At first glance, it was clear that he didn't have much to gain. This kind of thing was easy to do, but when others talked about it, it would be unpleasant to hear. Sure enough, Xiao Yuehong's strategy was effective. When Xiaohua saw some people, he immediately reduced his flying speed and maintained the speed of a cultivator at the first or second layer of the qi refining realm. In a row, he encountered several groups of cultivators around the seventh layer of the qi refining realm. They all swept their gazes over Xiaohua and then lost interest in looking at him. Xiaohua's face was especially careful. As soon as he bumped into them, he lowered his altitude and gave way to them from a distance. His attitude was truly respectful, which made them feel very comfortable in their hearts. Everyone was once a low-level disciple, so they understood that this disciple was definitely following his master's orders to go out on a mission. Their hearts spontaneously sprouted with pity. A few of them even smiled and nodded at Xiaohua. It seems, it's not as fierce and frightening as the sect head and senior sister said. Xiaohua unconsciously relaxed a little. After a few hours, the sky gradually darkened, and they had already reached the end of the plain. Not far away, there was a dense forest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Xiaohua was just about to find a place to stop and look at the direction when suddenly, his heart stirred. He turned his head and saw a figure rapidly approaching from 100 zhang behind him. From the looks of it, that figure was rushing towards him. That brat you! The person in the distance seemed to have seen Xiaohua turn his head and shouted from afar. Although the distance was about 100 zhang, that person's voice seemed to be right next to his ear. Xiaohua slightly frowned. That person's flying speed wasn't faster than his own when he was flying at full speed. His cultivation should be around the 9th layer of the qi refining realm. Xiaohua might be able to fly faster than him, but the forest was right in front of him. Xiaohua still hadn't thought of a way to enter it. If he hastily fled, he was afraid there would be danger inside. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua stopped and turned around to respectfully wait. When that person came closer, Xiaohua could already clearly see that he was a middle-aged man about 40 years old. He wore a somewhat shabby Taoist robe and held a long sword in his hand. "This, senior martial brother, do you have any instructions?" Xiaohua bowed and asked. "Senior martial brother?" That person flew to Xiaohua's side and looked him up and down. He sneered and said, "You're just a mediocre cultivator. What qualifications do you have to call me senior martial brother?" Xiaohua slapped his forehead with an ashamed expression and said with a smile, "It's all this disciple's negligence. This is the first time disciple has come out to do something. I'm not familiar with etiquette and have neglected senior. May I ask, senior, why did you call disciple for? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.